Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Lviv Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 225 of the news. And man, was that a hell of an intro or what?
And what an intro it was. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine and the final day of the week here on day 225 of the war. And can you all believe it or not, but the Least Spring Army actually sent a round down the range, and my voice is about to explode. I'm still trying to recover, but that was such a cool intro. Who even cares? I will blow away my vocal cords just because that was cool. And so with that, welcome back to the news, everyone. We're going to be covering the past 24 hours, and while we showed that video of the Least Spring Army doing its part to help out in the war, we've seen that the Ukrainians have been covering ground again today and have been engaged in large actions against the Russian armed forces in both the Northeast and also in the South. And so, without further ado, let's go to the busiest area of the front line where we see that the Ukrainians are still keeping up that momentum and speed that we've seen over the past few days in Kherson. And to start off with a high note, we saw the Ukrainian flag officially raised over Davidov Brid. And so without further ado, here is the video.
Слава Україні, слава морській піхоті! Сьогодні, 4 жовтня 2022 року, Давидів Брід звільнений від орків силами 35-ї окремої бригади морської піхоти, батальйон морської піхоти. Урочисто вішаємо жовто-блакитний стяг над Давидовим Бродом. Слава Україні!
And what a video. The flag is finally flying over Davidov Brid, which was liberated several days ago, officially and symbolically showing that Davidov Brid is Ukraine's again and will never become the Russians once more. Not only that, we've seen how fast the Russians have been retreating in this area, as in this town of Starosilia, which was a part of the front line at a point. The Russians retreated with such speed that they left behind a completely intact BMP-2 inside of this shed. And so here's the video of that. We see the footage is a little grainy, but this is a BMP-2. You can see the turret right there, left intact inside this shed.
Ми її не просто тут знайшли, а в принципі ми дуже причетні до того, що вона тут отака от привалена залишилася. Хлопці, помахайте. Це головні причетні до отримання цього трофея. Особливо цей перший високий хлопець, на якому не хоче фокусуватися ця камера.
And so with that, that is the end of this video, and it's great to see that this BMP was captured intact by the Ukrainians. All they have to do is move a little bit of the roof off the top of the BMP, and it is theirs for the rest of the war. And also, I see loads of y'all in the live chat asking for us to go back and replay that intro. Now, I would love to.
We got to see it again.
Now, I will do that here in a second. I'll have to be doing some magic work in the background too to do that, so it'll be kind of weird. But also another thing, do not fret. This is not a limited time one-day intro card. That is becoming a permanent addition to the intro of the Enforcer streams every single night. And so every single night we'll be greeted with that incredibly generous donation pretty much to the Least Spring Army that Sign My Rocket did. Now, just in case you all do not know, a viewer of ours is actually affiliated with Sign My Rocket and said, hey, we love what y'all are doing. Could we give y'all a shell for free? And so we said, sure. And so they made the shell, and then they sent us a video of them showing the shell and then firing it. And so, of course, that was cool. I mean, I was blown away, and we finally put it in the intro, and it will be here forever. So real quick, everyone, I'm actually going to flip over to the intro card again. I actually have to press Control, Alt, and Q, which I've never done before. But let me get over to it, and I will play that for y'all one more time, just because that was the coolest thing ever. And so, here it is again.
Yes.
The Least Spring Army sends its regards.
Yeah, it's playing right now, actually. It's just that we don't have audio for it. Also, we're on mute. downrange, and then the anthem began, and now we return back to the stream after showing that a second time, because isn't that cool or what? I mean, like, I'm blown away, and I think that's the coolest thing that anyone has ever done for this channel, and a huge credit to Sign My Rocket for doing that for us, and also being out there and fighting this war. Of course, I wish them the best of luck. The guy actually sent us over some other pictures of shells that they had done, and they do some incredibly detailed artwork on some of them. I have to say, pretty impressive stuff. Due to copyright reasons, I can't show it, but it was really good nonetheless. Anyways, moving on into the next area near Zolota Balka, we actually got a video of the Ukrainian armed forces moving through the area after the battle occurred. And so here's the video, and you can see that this battle was a pretty hard-fought one between both the Russians and the Ukrainians, as there was about, I would say, about a third of all the vehicles that we'll see are Ukrainian, and the other two-thirds of them are Russian vehicles that were destroyed in this very same area of the road. And so here's the video. And we're going to have to mute that, but we can see there a destroyed Russian BMP. Moving further down the road, we can also see what appears to be a destroyed BTR. We can also see a Ukrainian BTR that was abandoned on the road. Another destroyed Ukrainian APC. We can then see another Russian BTR? I couldn't exactly tell. Another Russian BMP. Not exactly sure whose side this is. It could either be Ukrainian or Russian. And that shows you how fierce the fighting was for this breakthrough, and how well the Ukrainians are trained to be shock troops. This type of stuff that you see right here is similar to the lightning-fast tactics that the Germans used in World War II during the Battle of Poland and the Battle of France. A breakthrough like this is actually, even in the weaker areas of the front where these are conducted, they are still very tough to pull off and usually incur a decent amount of casualties initially, and then the casualties dissipate as you start to push further behind their lines and deal with less of their forces. But still, it shows that the Ukrainians fought tooth and nail to conduct this successful breakthrough, and now they are reaping the rewards of these soldiers' sacrifices and the hard fighting that they did in the opening hours of this push. And so with that, we're now going to be moving even further down the lines and towards the front line itself, where we can see that the Ukrainians have captured a Russian floating bridge. This is incredibly rare, and I think this is the first one that they've ever captured. And so here's the video. And you can see it right here. It's just this massive trailer with this big giant floating bridge on it. If it's not, I guess you could say, assembled, this thing actually folds out like a like when you fold a paper over on itself to make one of those paper fans. It folds out like that, so what you're seeing is the floating bridge packed up. But man, what a catch! I don't even know how in the world they captured that thing or where it was, but hell, I mean, I'm not gonna sit there and question it too much. That is impressive to see. I don't even know how they did it. But with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news in the Kherson area, where you can see that the Ukrainians conducted a Humvee raid, and this was the most insane Humvee raid I've seen so far. And so, without further ado, here's the video, a short 15-second video of a Humvee raid. Also, I'm going to have to mute it. But we see the Humvees racing forward, the artillery slamming around them, and they are flooring it through this field, bouncing all around, trying to get over the berm. You're about to watch him literally go flying head over heels over the berm. Gosh, man, that is insane. They are pretty much conducting modern-day cavalry raids with the Humvees. Is that cool or what, Matthew?
That is cool.
That is pretty cool. And so with that's the end of the video. And still, huge credit to the Ukrainian raiders who have been doing unbelievable stunts to pull off successful raids. This kind of stuff right here, obviously, is not good for the longevity of your suspension system. Hopefully they got leaf springs. But still, huge credit to these Ukrainian raiders. It's amazing to see them at work and in action. Moving on across the front line, we can also see the Ukrainians advancing in the area of Kherson, but we don't know exactly where. We can see a BTR up on the road and a bunch of Ukrainian soldiers on the side.
Ніхто не стріляє. Не бачу.
You hear the BTR firing. Soldiers looking around. Something explodes further down the way. We now see that the videos progress forward again. And y'all may remember this part. This has the buggy. We see the Ukrainian flag flying on the BTR there. When you see the Toyota again. So we're going to skip forward past this specific part of the video. What we see here on the next clip... Actually, I'm sorry, it hasn't progressed to the next clip yet. This is still part of the video we saw yesterday. We can see a fire breaking out. BTRs continuing to fire down the road. A massive BTR, as a matter of fact, on the road.
З усіх сторон, сука.
Now see the BTR rolling forward. We see the buggy again with the MG3. You see that BTR firing.
Де?
And most of this video was actually from yesterday, but there were still a few clips of new parts that I wanted to make sure to show to y'all, because it shows what the actual situation is like on the ground. And of course, the Ukrainians are continuing to steamroll like a steamroller through the Russian front lines. It's unbelievable to see, and we may see Kherson liberated within the upcoming weeks. Now, in my honest opinion, I don't think they'll be going to Kherson in one fell swoop. They will most likely take a couple of weeks to get to Kherson and finally take it. But still, it is impressive to see the progress they've been making as we watch this last video of a Ukrainian assault in the Kherson area. And so without further ado, here's another video of some Humvees conducting a lightning-fast raid. We can see them bouncing their way over the berm and past a destroyed vehicle beside them. They're now running out into the field. They are just flooring it through.
It's actually handling the bumps pretty well.
It actually is. I wonder how good the suspension on a Humvee really is. Like, what can it really take before it just can't handle it anymore? See that they're moving through the wheat fields. Now I hear the machine gun firing on top a little bit. We can also see the first Humvee fire off an RPG. And you can see, one thing I would love to note is that you can already see that the Rasputista will start to set in heavily here soon. You can see the massive indentation that this Humvee is making on the softer field. The best thing about this, though, is that the field has not been driven over by a vehicle before that churned it up and turned it into mud. So, luckily, they're not going to be bogged down this time. But if these Humvees went over the same area multiple times, it would most likely turn into a deadly slush that these Humvees would get stuck in. And they are hauling it. I can't believe how fast they're really going across this field. You can hear the machine gun firing on top a little bit. We see that the camera's kind of getting slushed over by some water. Of course, kind of showing you how wet these fields really are at this time of year. And you hear the Ukrainians shouting to each other some kind of information. They're continuing to roll forward towards the tree line. And when you see those 50 caliber rounds actually hit in the tree line as they grip up with the other Humvee and soldiers start dismounting. The front gunner continues to fire through the opening in the tree line. We now see the Ukrainian squad moving forward. Gosh, man, is
That
this
looks
like
boss.
this is epic. This is like a war movie right here. Look at this. They just come pouring forward like a wave. That is cool as
That
hell.
really is cool. I will say one of the coolest videos I've seen so far.
And I mean, like, they dropped off like a whole, like, half of a company. Like, that's like 25 guys right there. They're about to start spreading out across this tree line with support from the Humvees. And they're literally bringing the fight to the Russians. Literally just a race across the field, like a boss. Then they just sit there and just unload 25 guys into this tree line. And they're going to just start pouring it onto the Russians in moments after this. We now see the Humvees backing out of the area, of course, giving covering fire. We see more Ukrainians further down the tree line firing at the Russians. And there goes the Humvees again, on their way out after successfully dropping off this Ukrainian, I guess you could call it a wing or a half company. Now, I gotta go back in this video real quick to that exact moment where they all started pouring forward. I mean, like, to you, Matthew, does this seem almost like one of those 1940 movies where the Americans started running forward to fight the Germans? There was, like, that guy at the front, "Get him, boys!" And they just started running forward.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, look at them go. I mean, this was cool.
This is what a brave, competent military looks like.
I mean, hell, and look at them. They're getting into it. They're going straight into the thickets to get to the other side. They are going for it. I mean, like, none of them look reluctant. They're all putting tooth and nail into this whole entire thing to make sure that they get the Russians as quick as they can. And huge credit. And a lot of people are saying platoon, but are y'all sure that's a platoon? Size of a Ukrainian platoon. Let's see here. How many soldiers are in a... We don't want to know that. We want to know about a platoon. So let's see if this tells us the breakup of how they divide up their forces by number. Because I feel for some reason... I know that a U.S. platoon is around 14, 15, or 16 people, but if for some reason this looks like more than 14 or 15, it looks like 20, 25. It looks like maybe 2 platoons. And I think 4 platoons make up a company, if I'm correct, Matthew?
I'm not really sure off the bat. I can't remember.
I'm not really sure either, and sadly, I can't get any breakdown to how big. How big is a platoon?
I know it's 4. I think it's 4 squads is a company, and then I think it's.
Okay.
I'm not sure how many companies.
Okay. It is a platoon. Okay, so thank you everyone for clarifying that. I was just trying to make sure. It is 20 to 50 soldiers, so y'all are right. This is just a platoon. And gosh, man, platoons are getting huge. Like, if you look back historically, platoons were usually a bit smaller, but dang, I mean, like, in Civil War terms, that's like half a company. That's not a platoon. A platoon would be like 14 guys, I guess you could say, in late Victorian numbers and also early World War I numbers. But man, that's actually massive. But yeah, that's a whole platoon moving forward, and huge credit to them again. And also huge credit to the training and the morale that they have to be able to just go forward into the battle like this. You don't see this from the Russians, and it's just impressive to see. And so with that, that's the end of this video, and we're now going to be moving out of the Kherson area, but before we do that, let's give a little summary of what we've been seeing. So far, what we've seen over the past few days is that the Ukrainians have conducted a breakthrough in the area of Zelenskyy and started to push down this, I guess you could say, reservoir side road, the T0403, all the way down towards Mylovy. They stopped for a moment at Dachany, and then after they regrouped for a second, they then continued their advance down towards Mylovy, and then pushed westwards towards Sukhanove, which threatened the Russian lines with encirclement, and so the Russians retreated rapidly out of this entire area and down to the front line we see today. The Ukrainians, so far, of course, we don't talk about what they're doing and what they will be doing in the future, but based off of what we've seen, I have nothing but high hopes for the Ukrainians, as they are really showing what the Ukrainian army is capable of, combined with Western weaponry and the Western doctrines that they've been trained off of by the British and other allied NATO countries that have been supporting them during this war. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of Kherson and on into Russia, where we've gotten two interesting videos. Of course, y'all know that the partial mobilization occurred some while ago. And in the meantime, the Russians have raised about 300,000 men. A lot of people have been very concerned about this, thinking that this is going to change the tide of the war in Ukraine. Of course, you have your old heads who just can't give up on the premise of the Ukrainians are winning, and they're still trying to say, just give it a moment, the Russians are going to turn this whole thing around, and they're going to start winning. But by and large, about half of those people have now started saying an entirely different story, and now they're agreeing with me, and they're saying that this war will most likely be over, and the Russians will never regain the initiative. And I would have to say, watching these videos today, these mobilized soldiers are never going to make it to the front lines. They've been dropped off at rail yards all over Ukraine, and they're just stuck there. Like, there's no commanders nearby, there's no supplies or anything, they're just sitting around trying to figure out what to do next. So here's the video of the first group of Russians in Belgorod that have just been left.
Итак, мы сейчас находимся в Белгородской области. Нас в районе 500 человек с оружием, но при этом мы не приписаны абсолютно никакой части. Неделю мы прожили в скотских условиях. Абсолютно скотских. Никакого материального обеспечения, денежного удовольствия.
Look at this. There's literally a passenger train behind them. They're nowhere near a train station. They've just been left in the rail yard, and they have no idea what's going on anymore. They've just been left there.
Счетом ничего. Сейчас также неизвестно, кто, куда едет, к какой части приписаны. Оружие на руках, но оно не...
You know, Mandy, I was just thinking about this. You know, the Russian army is by and large pretty dumb, but I've never seen the Russian soldiers as dumb to literally stand on the train tracks, most likely heading into a rail yard. That's just asking to get run over. I mean, like, look.
That's about right.
Yeah, this cameraman is literally standing in the middle of a rail yard.
Какой части
On the railroad
приписаны?
tracks.
Оружие на руках, но оно не записано на нас.
Статья 222 Уголовного кодекса
Ни один автомат не прописан в нашем военнике.
Это статья 222
Why are they hiding their
Уголовного
faces,
кодекса
though? What are they scared of?
Oh, they're scared. They're scared of the Ukrainian, you know, the Neos, you know. They're scared of them. And honestly, that's a great point, Matthew. But another thing that I've noticed is that it does look kind of cold in this video, and so they may be wearing it to keep warm. But then again, I think they're actually scared. I would go more so with scared. They're probably so drunk on vodka that they're already feeling hot, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyways, we're going to let the video continue.
Мы никому не нужны. Подготовки ровным счетом 0.
Мы жрем то, что сами себе покупаем.
Мы потратили охеренное
Is
количество.
that guy wearing a sweater? Like under the jacket?
It looks like it. A
It
Christmas
looks like
sweater
it.
at best.
Yeah, he's going to win the ugly Christmas sweater competition among the white lotas.
100 бабок.
Чтобы просто поесть.
Это же не говоря об амуниции. Вот, нам выдали боевой комплект, то есть боевые патроны.
The guy holding that like that for him.
I think that's
He's like
because
threatening him with a magazine.
I will stab you with magazine, Blit. And also another
It's
thing,
not even sharp, comrade.
unfortunately, I cannot translate Russian all too well. I don't know Russian that well, but one thing I think that this guy is trying to show is that he hasn't been provided...
Боевой
Before I say that,
комплект,
let me make
то есть
sure.
боевые патроны.
I don't think this guy has an AK. I think all he has is a magazine, but let me make sure, because he's got a strap. Yeah, he doesn't have an AK. All he's got is a magazine. Quick, Vadim.
Wow.
Go fight the Ukrainians. Oh, what do I get? You get this magazine. Take it. What? That's why he's holding it like a knife, probably. He's probably saying something like, I have to go and stab the Ukrainians with a magazine or something like that. But with that, that's
Or Enforcer, it could be bragging rights that they have any ammo at all. So he's like, look at my ammo.
yeah, probably. He's going to give his ammo to the guy back here who has a gun, and they're going to be like a two-man team. But still, that is hilarious. And also, it's really pitiful for these soldiers to be left in the freezing cold, to be conscripted into the army for this glorious war. And then the glorious Russian government leaves them in the glorious cold and the glorious railroad of the hero city of Belgorod. Oh man, it's almost ironic in a way, and it shows you how little the Russian government really cares for this many soldiers. It looks like there was hundreds of them, and they'll just drop them off in a rail yard and forget about them at the first moment it conveniences them. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip, and we're now going to be moving deeper into Russia, up towards the area of Moscow, where we saw the exact same thing happen again. In a different rail yard. It's literally the same situation in a different rail yard, and this one actually has a translation, so that way y'all can see what they're actually saying. So here's the video, and they're going to explain the situation that the other guys were dealing with in Belgrade as best as they can. And so here's the video.
Один автомат не прописан в нашем военнике.
Это статья 222 Уголовного кодекса Российской Федерации.
Отношение скотское от офицеров.
Мы никому не нужны. Подготовки ровным счетом ноль. Мы жрем то, что сами себе покупаем.
Oh my god, wait a minute. That guy just said they're not getting any food. They have to buy their own food from wherever they're going.
Dang.
Oh my god. Yeah, okay. That's the basics of logistics, everyone. Ever since the beginning of time, the most basic logistical principle of a military was how do we feed the soldiers? And the Russians can't even get that down. These guys don't even get food from the Russian army.
And Enforcer, I saw people saying that the last video was actually the Russians complaining and that this might be the same group.
I'm not entirely sure. We'll watch the video a little bit more. So
Это уже не говоря об амуниции. Вот, нам выдали боевой.
oh, it is. It's from a different angle because there's the guy holding the magazine like a knife. Okay, so
It sure is. They have one magazine and that's it.
This is a real quick correction, everyone. Thank you for bringing that up. This is the exact same video from a different angle, this time with a translation. Apparently, it picks up about nearer to the end of the last one. And so we're now going to let the video continue, but keep that in mind. This guy is actually explaining through the translation their real situation.
Комплект, то есть боевые патроны. Были найдены в части.
Просто найдены на улице в части.
Wow, that guy hits it right on the nail. We're mentally unstable.
Very accurate.
Yeah, it's just everyone's complaining about getting no supplies and no food, and some guy in the back just yells out, "We're mentally unstable." It's like, that's a great message to put out.
Никакой медкомиссии не было нигде, блядь.
This guy is literally calling out people. He's like, there's mentally unstable people in here. They're weird.
На очереди. Первый день, как только мы приехали сюда, мы жили на улице.
И во второй день.
И в третий. 90% людей, которые находятся здесь, больны.
Out of this whole unit, they have like 10 guns out of like 140 guys.
And probably no ammo in the gun.
They haven't even registered these with a quartermaster.
Вооружение 70-х, 80-х годов.
And then someone's out there racking the slide like it's some kind of a click pin, you know, like.
And also, Enforcer, this explains why they're wearing masks now. I saw somebody in the live chat saying it, that the people are wearing masks to hide their identities.
Apparently so. They apparently have no helmets or armor either. And that's the end of the video, and I gotta say, this is pitiful. I mean, it's pitiful to see that the Russians, almost everyone was lied to about the Russian army and its abilities before this war. This small war, I mean, in the picture of things, for a nation like Russia and the story that they built themselves up on before this war, this, even with about 56,000 soldiers killed, should be a small war for them, and they can't even handle it at all. Their logistics have completely fallen apart. They can't even give these guys ammo, uniforms, winter gear, food. They have completely collapsed behind the lines. I'm sure that, to be honest, the reason why, and if we look at this from a historical situation, here comes someone who will say that they've had a history doctorate for 40 years, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but based off of this, I would say that this is very similar to another historical situation where another country started to collapse. The Imperial Germans at the end of World War I. When the United States arrived in mass during the early year of 1918, the early season of 1918, we started to obliterate the German lines. We even broke through the Hindenburg line, I believe it was. Let me think about that. I think it was the Hindenburg line, if I'm correct. I think that was the name of it. We blew through the Hindenburg line, and we thought that the Americans were hot stuff, and they were. They were brand new, high morale. They were getting all of their equipment from the French and the British, for the most part, except for some of it. They were doing great. One thing we didn't know at that point, we found out after the war, is that the reason why a lot of American units were starting to undertake these offensives and just blow through the German lines is because the Germans were literally collapsing internally. In case if you didn't know, Matthew, there was actually a communist republic that popped up in the region of Bavaria and controlled the entire thing. It was called the Spartacus rebellion or uprising, and they took over the entire area. And so the Imperial Germans were having to deal with all of these massive domestic issues and mutinies within the Imperial German army on the front. And then in the meantime, the Americans were pushing onto this almost non-existent fighting force at that time and just pushing them back beyond belief. Also, that's not trying to discredit American soldiers in the First World War, because if you read their stories, they did deal with a lot and they were incredibly brave. But at the same time, this is starting to look a lot like that situation in a nutshell that the U.S. came into in 1918 at the end of World War I. The Ukrainians are starting to make massive amounts of ground everywhere. It looks like they're just breaking through the Russian lines, and they're doing a great job. But that may also be paired with the fact that a lot of Russian units may not even be supplied anymore. They may be entirely out of ammunition, entirely out of food, and so retreating for them is a matter of convenience more so than anything else. And so with that in mind, and seeing what's going on inside of Russia with some of these conscripts, I've got to tell y'all. Also, thank you. Wait a minute, no, Siegfried line, I think that was World War II. The Hindenburg line was World War I. I was correct. There it is. And the Americans were the first ones to break through the Hindenburg line, which was, according to the Germans, supposed to be impregnable. But that's always a very arrogant statement to make. Anyways, it looks like, honestly, it has the telltale signs of a similar historical situation. The Russian army may have collapsed at this point, and only the remnants, the shadow of the army, is left on the front lines trying to hold the land that they currently have. And it may just be a matter of Ukraine marching through and retaking it at this point. And if that's the case, this is going to be the most embarrassing upset in modern history, in the realm of modern wars over the past 70 years since World War II, to have ever occurred, to see an entire army just supply-wise collapse. That's an embarrassment. That's a matter of national prestige to see that something so embarrassing has happened. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to our final video from inside of Moscow, where we saw an armada on the move in a field. And what an opportune time for this video to come out, right when we see that the Russians are going through the telltale signs of the Imperial Germans in 1918. They now whip out a video of an armada hardly moving around the field. I mean, it looks like it's honestly struggling to move, but here's the video. There it is. It's driving around this poorly kept training field. And honestly, if you look at it, Matthew, it sounds and looks like the tank is struggling to cover very flat ground.
It does.
We see the tank stop for a moment. Now see the tank moving forward again. And you're about to hear it. Listen to that engine. It sounds like it's almost getting up to the top of its rev range, and it's hardly even accelerating or covering ground. Also notice...
It actually sounds like it's kind of swamping, maybe, like about to choke.
It kind of does. Listen to that. I mean, if you hear a normal tank move at that speed on flat ground, they hardly ever make a noise like that. This thing is suffering and ought to be put out of its misery because the engine or the transmission or something similar is shot inside of this brand new T-14 Armada. And of course, it's once again very opportune timing for this video to come out right when we see, once again, the Russian army looks like it may be in the process of collapsing, and the Russians can't even support the mobilized troops like we said on this channel before it even happened. they're now pulling out a video of a T-14 Armada, probably as a last bravura to try and get the fleeting morale that they're losing daily. But hearing the noise that engine's making to do this, I have no doubt whatsoever that these T-14s have not been sent to Ukraine in the limited numbers they are already in, due to the fact that these things most likely would face massive mechanical issues if they ever did make it to the front line. Also, it's experimenting with things that no other country has ever done before in history, and especially coming from the Russians, who are technologically backwards compared to most of the world, behind by 20 and 30 years in their, I guess you could say, computing sector, doesn't even exist. Considering that this tank's turret is entirely automated and there's not a single crew member inside of it, that right there is so mechanically complex that this tank probably wouldn't be able to function anyways. So with that, that's the end of the video. And also another interesting thing, throughout the whole video, they don't move the turret once. And that is something interesting to note. The turret may be locked into position, so that way it looks like it's an operational tank, but in reality, everything inside of that turret may be broken down or may not even be in there. It may just be the shell of a turret that's been equipped onto the hull of the T-14. So with that, that's the end of that video. And once again, huge credit to the Russians for trying to do another pitiful attempt at a propaganda corralling, or I guess you could say rallying, but in the process they show how bad off the T-14 really seems to be. With that, we're now going to be moving on out of Russia and on into our location unknown news. But before we get there, we have to take a quick pause to address our polls and also 3 questions from the chat. And so, without further ado, take it away, Matthew.
All right, folks. So for our first question segment, we have 2 polls to go over. And you also might have noticed the bots are back in force tonight. I don't know what has got them upset, but I have seen a whole bunch of bots in the live chat. So as always, if you see one, please tag it and also tag me in your message so I can get rid of it quickly. I've gotten rid of maybe about 30 by now, so probably many more to come. But please tag them if you see them. Also, the first poll said, did you like the Sign My Rocket video? It looks like 85% said yes, too cool. 11% said it works, and 4% said no, not cool. So I would have to fall within the too cool camp very clearly. I think that was one of the coolest videos we've ever shown on our channel, next to the video of the Ukrainians jumping out in mass. But pretty cool video, I must say. And big credit to Sign My Rocket as well. And Enforcer, what do you have to say?
We already know what category I'm falling in. It's the coolest thing ever. And so it will be staying in our intro permanently. That was a huge kindness that the Sign My Rocket group has done for us. And also, it's just neat. And it's cool to see that the Lee Spring Army has gotten representation on the front lines of Ukraine. That is just amazing to me. And so with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. And we are on to the next poll.
All right. And the next poll says, do you think widespread Russian military revolts are coming? And yes, folks, you might have noticed the little typo there that meant to say more and not moi. But it looks like 69% said yes, it is coming. 25% said maybe, and 6% said no, likely not. Now, I think that more military revolts are coming against their superiors. How widespread it'll be, there's no telling, but it's definitely going to increase in my opinion. And Enforcer, where do you stand?
And I would have to say, I think that revolts are going to start beginning en masse. One thing that always gets people to revolt is the lack of food. And considering that these Russian soldiers aren't even being fed, and once they expend their own personal finances trying to keep themselves alive, and they just start to starve, that is going to lead these units into mutiny. Considering that they are slightly armed, they do have the ability to at least cause a ruckus for a short while. And so for that reason, I entirely believe that more uprisings will begin within the Russian army, especially since the situation is falling apart and they're now starting to starve. And so with that, I hope that answers that poll fairly well, and we are on into the next one. And if we don't have another one, we'll move straight into the questions.
All right, so moving into our super chats, up first, we have a $50 donation from George, New York's premier contractor, who is a longtime channel viewer. And George, it's good to see you once again. He says, very mad today. Russia has been in war with my homeland, Georgia, for hundreds of years or against our values. Hundreds of thousands of Russians arrived in Georgia, and yet they are surprised why Georgians hate Russians. WTF.
And also, I thank you so much for the support, George. It's great to have you back. You were here on literally day 4. I remember you being here, and it's cool to have you back. And of course, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep going. Now, to answer that, in case if y'all don't know, the Russians have done terrible things to the Georgians over time. The Turks also have done terrible things to the Armenians, but that's a story for another time. By and large, these 3 countries in this area have been subjected to large amounts of oppression and suffering and torture from both the Turkish and also the Russians. Now, real quick, to pull up something for y'all to get a perspective, Circadian, I believe it's Circadian or Circassian Revolt. Let me try and hang on. Circadian rhythm. Sorry, that's not the one. I think it's Circassian genocide. Here we go. So you can see here, Circassians live in largely the area of Georgia, really more so towards, I guess you could say Chechnya, but at the time, based off of what it kind of looked like, Georgian culture did extend fairly well into the Caucasus Mountain range. The Russians decided, due to some, I guess you could say, revolts and uprisings that happened in the area due to oppressive Russian rule and also pretty much subjecting the people down there to being second and third class people, they decided to revolt. A general was sent down there by the Russian Empire to deal with these uprisings and ended up slaughtering hundreds of thousands of Circassians. And this guy was so sick, he would have them boiled and you have their body parts put in trunks and he would put them under his bed wherever he was on campaign. It was honestly sick. I remember reading the stories. It's like, God, I was like, that's like freaking terrible. Like, that was rough. But anyways, I do agree with you entirely that it's sickening to see that the Russians don't understand why almost all of their neighbors can't stand them, especially the neighbors that they have down in the Caucasus regions, both in Georgia and also on their side in Chechnya and Dagestan. Because it doesn't make any sense that they don't understand this. The Russians have been going around and treating everyone that's not a Russian as a second and third class citizen for all of history. And then they get surprised when these people can't stand to see them around. You know, it's almost like they don't even teach their own history. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And I do have to agree entirely that it's pretty messed up by and large that they don't really understand where they are historically and what they've done to everyone to make them unbearable to most people. And so with that, I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again, George, New York's premier contractor, because you certainly are New York's premier contractor. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And next up, we have a $50 super chat from Livy Washington, who says, thanks for being the best recap. Slava Ukraine, and pass my question to someone else. And I think this is Livy's first time supporting the channel, so thank you very much for supporting us and helping us to keep running. And real quick, Enforcer, before I move on to that live chat question, do you have anything you want to add?
And also, I would like to thank you so much for the support. If that is your first time, then thank you for your first time ever of supporting the Lee Spring Army. The only way we keep this channel running is through our viewers' support, through Super Chats. We don't run any ads on our streams because we want people to be able to click on this and not have to deal with annoying ads. I find them annoying, and so, of course, we make sure to not run ads on these streams. And so I thank you so much for helping us to keep this stream going on a little bit longer. And thank you so much for enjoying this channel as well. And in your honor, we will answer a live chat question sponsored by you yourself. And so with that, what live chat question do we have, Matthew?
All right, and this one is sponsored by Livy Washington, and it goes to RZBK08, who says, Enforcer, Ukraine actually has more troops on the ground right now than the Russians do in Ukraine. And that was more of a statement than a question, actually.
And that is somewhat true at this point, although we don't have an official number of how many soldiers the Ukrainians have, which kind of adds in a lot of leeway. We know that at the beginning of the war, the Ukrainian army was around 277,000 men, I believe. Ukrainian army. Let me check that real quick. They were at... Let's see here. Actually, correction, 196,000. They may be up more towards the 300,000 category at this point. They did mobilize a lot of men to defend the country at the beginning of the war. And so, in that regard, I would have to say most certainly their military is increased in size. In fact, they may have activated all of their reserve personnel, which means that the Ukrainian army may be close to 1 million soldiers at this point, although that's highly unlikely because they probably don't have the supplies necessary to raise that many soldiers. They're probably still trying to figure that out and train them so that way they can continue to grow the army over time. It's not something that you can instantaneously do. It always takes time to build them up. But I would agree, as far as we know, based off of the information we have, the Ukrainians may be, at this point, outnumbering the Russians in Ukraine. And that's good news, as it allows them the ability to push these massive counteroffensives that we've seen across all of the country. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat, and I hope I addressed that one fairly well. And so we are on to our last question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the location unknowns.
All right. And folks, I have to say once again, I'm not sure what triggers bots to come out in force, but tonight is a hell of a night for bots. I guess Russia has really gotten frustrated with losing, so they've resorted back to trying to harass people online. They're harassing not only us, Enforcer, but also the viewers tonight, it looks like. But they're getting Stugned. But anyways, moving on to our last one of the segment, we have a $30 donation from White Lightning 777, who says, is NAFO a reputable charity? It's the one with those dog memes and a Georgia Legion.
NAFO is a really cool organization. Super Monker 9000 is actually probably our most commonly known NAFO member that watches these streams. Now, real quick, I'll pull them up. NAFO is a group. It's a internet meme and social media movement dedicated to countering Russian propaganda and disinformation about the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. As far as I know, I don't think they are a non-profit. I think they're more so just a collective group, kind of like the Lee Spring Army. But it is really cool to see that they have a Wikipedia page. Does the Lee Spring Army have one? Wouldn't that be crazy? Oh my god, man.
That would be crazy.
Like when you type it in on Google, hang on, I gotta show you all this. This is really cool. It'll probably show up again now, but when you type in Lee Spring Army, it shows up on Google, Lee Spring Army Enforcer.
Oh, Enforcer, that's because it's your search history.
That actually, I've never pulled that up before. And so that actually just, try it on yours real quick.
Let me see here. Type in what terms do you type in?
I type in Leaf Spring Army. That's what I just did. That was the first time I ever pulled up the Leaf Spring Army. But Leaf Spring Army, and then just click space and see if it autofills Enforcer.
Okay.
That's
Okay, it says
really cool.
Google suggestions, and it says Leaf Spring Army Enforcer on the exact same spot yours did.
That is really cool, isn't it?
That is cool. Very cool.
Sadly, the Lee Spring Army doesn't have a Wikipedia page. If you're going to make one for us, make sure to put the little honey badger up there as their symbol, because I think that is just about the symbol of the Lee Spring Army at this point, or the L.S.A, the abbreviated version of the Lee Spring Army. That would be really cool, but it is neat to see that they got their own little page. Also, they've got that dog all over it, man. It's all over the thing.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Doge is looking over the whole operation.
the Keems, I believe it is. The Cheems or the Keems.
Or Cheems?
I think so. Also, here's some other pictures of the dog. I like this one. I think this is a funny one from NAFO. Is the Cheems doing that thing as the HIMARS fires in the background?
Cheems is so pleased.
We can also see it wearing an Adidas camouflage tracksuit, and also shaking hands with some kind of UN General Secretary Doge. Really cool, all in all. But of course, they are a really neat little organization. We have NAFO members that watch this stream. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, White Lightning 777. I hope that answers the comment fairly well. And of course, as we are all Lee Spring Army members, make sure to give a huge hello to all of the NAFO members who are watching this stream at this moment, because they have helped out this channel a lot, helped us to keep running, and help us out occasionally with gathering the news. That's been a one-off thing. I think I've gotten 3 or 4 video clips from people who've said they are in NAFO, and I think that was incredibly kind of them. And I'm glad to know that we're all on the same page and supporting Ukraine together as a group. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on into our location unknowns and out of this question segment. And so, moving on into them and starting off on our first one, we saw the luckiest tank crew alive. I'm not going to say anything about what happens. Here's the video, and then I'm going to, of course, do everyone's favorite. I'm going to pause it and then explain what happens. And so, here's the video. See the tank rolling forward. Bop! Bop! And what had just happened there is that tank was slammed twice by the Russians using anti-tank rounds. And guess what, Matthew? No one was injured.
Really?
Yeah. They're like, oh my god. Like, they all just get off the tank like, oh my god, that was frightening. Let me run into the tree line. So they go running into the tree line, and they start getting ready to fire right back at the Russians. Now see them firing. And we now hear the firefight beginning all around them. And they handled that really well, considering that they were just inches away from death. I mean, like, honestly, let's watch that again. They're just rolling for a bam! First round hits. They sit there for a second, bam! Second round hits. And instead of just freaking out and going into panic and running off, they all go and like, they have a plan. Like, they just get off the tank and they go running over into the ditch. I mean, that was really good response considering the situation. And I gotta say, that shows y'all once again that these guys are as trained as one can get. The British, along with all of the other NATO members that have been training Ukrainian soldiers, have done a great job. And the Ukrainians have also done an incredible job training these soldiers as well, because they are collected, they stayed calm, even when an unbelievable situation happened. And somehow, the tankers survived, according to the caption. The driver got a couple of burns, some smaller burns on his arm, but that was it. Also, some of y'all are asking about this little clip later on where the soldier looks over and you see some kind of fire down there. It's not a guy that's on fire, it's the grass that's on fire near him. I don't know how that happened, but still, I noticed that too, and I was like, huh, the grass is on fire, but I didn't say anything about it. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip of news after that unbelievable miracle, once again showing the, I guess you could say, the quality of the Ukrainian soldier. And we're now going to be moving on into the special surrender operation, where we saw that a Russian BMP voluntarily surrendered itself to the Ukrainians at a pre-designated surrender point. And so here's the video. We see the Ukrainians lined up against this berm. And we see the cameraman looking out into the distance into all of those pixels. And here comes the Russian BMP, waving a white flag off the barrel, clearly showing that it's surrendered. Now it's driving in front of the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians start moving forward, telling the BMP to stop. When you see the commander's also holding up a white rag. You see they're kind of driving on. I mean, like, they're not really stopping. Now you see that they finally stopped the BMP. And now the Russian commander of the BMP is climbing out of the turret. And also, someone just pointed out that the white flag is actually a white pair of pants, and I just realized that's a white pair of pants. It's surprising that they haven't been turned brown yet. We now see the commander and the gunner getting out of the tank, and we're waiting to see where the driver comes out. I think the driver is most likely going to try and get out the back, although I'm not exactly certain. I see them laying down on the ground.
This has got to be really tense if you're actually there, because they could open fire if they wanted to from the tank.
They could, and I don't see any AT weapons with these Ukrainian soldiers. We now see them patting down the Russians, making sure that they don't have any weapons on them. You see the driver now putting up his hands and climbing out of the BMP as well.
На землю! Морда в землю! В броне что-то есть еще? Нет. Нет. Контроль!
Now see them checking and patting down his uniform as well. He had a pistol on him. They threw the pistol off. What an idiot. When you really think about that, Matthew, what kind of idiot sits there knowing that they're surrendering and puts a pistol on their hip and then climbs out of the tank with it on them?
Yes, really.
Elmer Killer had said driver hots out with a gat, and he was about to get clapped. Oh, man.
Yeah, the Russian on the ground looks like he's about to rob a bank with that mask.
Yeah, put the money in the bag! Now see him throwing something else off him. I think that may have been the holster, although I can't really tell. Now he's doing the classic Slav squat on top of the Russian, making sure that he cannot move.
You know, honestly, Enforcer, I see quite a few people asking if this video is staged or maybe a training exercise.
I'm not exactly sure. Nope, there's a Z right there on that BMP. That's a real Russian BMP. Because if it was a Ukrainian one, it wouldn't have that Z on it, but that's clearly a Russian BMP. Now see them checking out the inside of the BMP. And is that insane or what? Because I actually did have my own apprehensions at the beginning of this video that apparently that it may be propaganda, but that Z on that BMP, if this was a propaganda video, why in the world would that still be on it? Usually when the Ukrainians get these BMPs, the first thing they do is put a yellow box over that, or a blue one, or some kind of cross on the vehicles now, instead of leaving that there. And so if this was a propaganda video, it would most likely look like a Ukrainian BMP, and it would be some kind of instructions to the Russians on how to surrender, or something similar. But I think this is real.
I'm kind of 50-50 at this point. That Z kind of looks small, like it was just temporarily put there, but at the same time, it seems really tense for it to be a training exercise.
Yeah, it does. I mean, they're treating it very seriously, and it doesn't really look staged like how they were patting people down and stuff. And also, the Truth Teller actually pointed out something really good about that Z. It's clearly faded and battle-worn. It's been on there for quite some while. So I think that may show that it's an original Z that the Russians put on the BMP. But then again, playing the devil's advocate here for a second, I just did notice this. That front area on the BMP where there usually is a Z looks kind of fresh, like it may have been washed off or painted over. So now I'm kind of on the fence. Throw up a poll on that, Matthew. Is this a real video or not? And, you know, you of course word it any way you wish, but I would like to see what the chat thinks, because I'm leaning towards it's real, but at the same time, this is almost too good to be true in a way. It's like, if that really happened, this is nuts.
Am I have the duct tape out? What is that noise?
I have no idea what that noise is.
Somebody said put a camera down the hatch and see if there's trash everywhere.
Man, I wish they would, but sadly we didn't get to see the inside of this BMP all too well. And I'm seeing a lot of good responses as to why this may be a real video. They said if it was if it was some kind of a training exercise, they would most likely have given the Ukrainians some kind of a handcuff instead of them using an improv, which is duct tape. And that's a pretty good point. There's a lot of good points. It looks like, honestly, right now, this poll, while just going up a second ago, it's already gotten nearly 1,300 votes, and it is it's pretty majority swayed towards real war footage. 17% of y'all said training exercise, and 26% of y'all said y'all don't have really an idea of what this is. So it looks like the large majority of y'all believe that this is real war footage, and if I had to pick a direction to go in, I feel like this is most likely real war footage. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and very interesting to see if that is real, which I'm more so leaning on that side than any, that they were able to get a BMP intact and the crew surrendered. Well, we're now moving on into the next video where we saw a British M270 in action. And so here's the video. And there goes the missile on its way towards the target. That's the end of that short little video, but it's cool to see that the British have finally provided that M270 and that they're now using them inside of Ukraine. As far as we know, I believe the British pledged 3 of them, and so there may be another 2 M270s somewhere in the country that the British have provided. Moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, we also saw the Russians getting hit as well again. Who would have known that this would have been our next video? And so, here's the video of the Russians turning into vapor.
Та нічого, ну куди тут спіши? А по-моєму, це хтось сидить тут, ні?
Та похуй.
You see them looking at this vehicle? Looks like a tank.
Мені інтересно, як він зараз обрадується.
Та да.
And that tank went up quickly. Also, I like this guy here. It sounded pretty weird, but still really funny.
Та да.
But with that, still great to see that the Ukrainians took out a Russian tank. It's nice to hear that the Ukrainians always get a quick little morale picker-upper with every single Russian tank destroyed. Moving on into the next one, we're now going to see the Ukrainians steal a Russian drone with one of those newfangled anti-drone guns. So we get to see that Starship Trooper-looking gun in action for once. And so here's the video. When you see the guy pointing the gun over there, the anti-drone gun, in the air and pointing it at the drone, and we now see the drone force landing itself in the exact spot it was hit at. The Ukrainian soldier now walks up to the drone and grabs it like some kind of bird, and then he holds it downwards. And now they got themselves a free Russian DJI Mavic.
Now, Enforcer, I'm not really sure exactly how the thing works, but I thought you weren't supposed to walk in front of the thing when it's on.
I think you can. I think it just disrupts the radio waves or the connection in between the operator and the drone, and then force lands it. But I wonder if anyone knows about the exact details about that little drone. Please let us know, because I would be interested in hearing it. And so with that, we are now moving on into the next bit of Location Unknown News, where we can see the Russians firing a Concours. Apparently, this is from mid-August, but I thought it was a pretty interesting video. And so, here is the video. We can see the Concours fire. You can see the fins immediately deploy. Concours is now on its way. And another thing you can see right there, you saw it, didn't you, Matthew? That little spark that went flying forward.
Yes.
That is because, much like a tow, that Concours is actually wire-guided, and you can see that wire right where my mouse cursor is moving. That's the wire that connects the operator to the anti-tank missile. You see it kind of move around a little bit, and that's the end of the video, and an interesting look at Russia's most competent anti-tank guided missile system in their inventory, but that's not saying much. This thing, from what we know, only fires accurately about half of the time. So it's a hit or miss. It's literally a 50-50 chance whether that missile will lose its connection or veer off mark or something like that if you fire it. And so with that, that's the end of the video and an interesting look at a Rosguardia Spetsnaz launching this ATGM. And also, just in case you all don't know, Rosguardia is the National Guard. So this is like the special forces of the National Guard, which usually most people consider, and it's usually the case, that the National Guard isn't as regular an army as the regular army, and they do have, I guess you could say, less training, are usually called up whenever, I guess you could say, needed in reserve. Here in the United States, that isn't always the case. We sometimes send over the National Guard just so that way they can get, I guess you could say, some experience, and I guess not get too rusty in the ways of war. But in Russia, the Rosguardia is called up whenever they just need more soldiers and the regular army isn't doing the job. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and we're now going to be moving on into our last one, where we can see a ghillie beamer. This video is going to be...
A beamer?
This video is going to be right up all of our BMW enthusiasts' alley, as this BMW did not break down. And here comes everyone going, you know, acting like crazy dogs. The beamer is not a bad car. And we got to mute that immediately. But they pull off the wrap off the beamer.
Oh, no.
And we got ghillie beamer in action.
Oh, it's a manual, though. Points for that.
Kudos for the manual. And that's
He's doing what you should do with a BMW. Take it out and thrash it.
And that's the end of the video, and we're probably about to see it here in a second go, dun, dun, and the ghillie guy go, blia, it just comes to a stop because the thing's engine broke or something similar. And I know, just know this, everyone. Whenever I say that stuff, it's a joke. I'm not trying to personally attack you for liking BMWs. I can't help that you have that problem. Maybe you need to see a counselor for it. And I'm just kidding with y'all. Don't take it seriously. But still, it's funny to see that the scout, or maybe the sniper, is using a BMW to get around. Pretty cool in a way. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the location unknowns and on into our next bit of news outside of location unknowns that has occurred in the northern Kharkiv area, which has been very active today. But before we get to all this news, which is the remainder of the news we have tonight, and also the speech from Zelenskyy, we're now going to go over our other polls and also 3 questions from the chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so this is our second to last question segment, and we have 2 more polls to address. And the first one said, some speculate that Putin's regime will collapse in the very near future, meaning weeks. Do you agree? 23% said yes, it'll happen in weeks. 60% said somewhat, it will happen in months. And 18% said no, it will not happen. Now, for me, I would have to fall within the majority who said it would happen in months. I do not think that Putin's regime will survive forever. It will eventually collapse. Either somebody will take him out, or there will be a revolt of some kind and he'll be put out. But I don't think he's going to remain. But Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a near certainty at this point that the Russian government will collapse, at least the one that stands now, at some point in the future. I don't think it'll happen in weeks. I think it'll most likely happen in months. And so with that, I'll have to agree with, I believe, the majority of y'all who said that, because I just can't, it doesn't look like the ball is rolling that fast right now for it to happen in weeks, most likely months. And so with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next poll was about that video that we thought was maybe a training exercise. And the question was, do you think it was a training exercise or real war footage? It looks like 58% said real war footage, 17% said training exercise, and 26% said, I have no idea. Now, for me, I would have to say that I'm really not sure. But if I had to take a guess, I'm honestly leaning toward real war footage. But then again, there are some things in the video that are a little bit odd, like the small Z. However, that's not enough to say the video is not real. So I'm kind of torn. But Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
Let's go and look at all of the Z's that have been put on Russian BMPs before on Google Images. And let's see if we can find the small Z's on other BMPs. So we have the big Z. We actually have Oz on the front of that one. We can see the Z on the side of the turret. There's a Ukrainian BMP. That's a sick looking camo, honestly. It makes this old BMP look kind of new. But we're still trying to find the little Z's. We can see a small Z right there painted onto the side of this pretty much Russian military parade camo pattern of a BMP-2. But right now, going through these, there's a Z on the back of the BMP that's somewhat small. Almost the same size. Not in a box, though. Scrolling further on down, let's see what else we got. Well, now there's small Z. We got actually several small Z's on that one, and a big Z on the front of the hull. And trying to go around and make sure that we take a look at all the BMPs that we can.
And also, Enforcer, another thing I've noticed is most of the Russians' equipment is really gnarly. And that one really wasn't that in bad shape, really, the one that was in the video.
It didn't look like it was in that bad of shape, but at the same time, some of these BMPs, like, let me go up here, further up again, like, this one, it almost looks to be as clean, except for the lower part of the front hull. That does look pretty filthy, but the rest of it does look kind of as clean. This one is, of course, trash-ridden. I don't know. I still feel like it was legitimate war footage and not a training video. But still, even so, it was a very interesting video to see. And so with that, I hope I've addressed that poll fairly well. I would have to fall amongst the 58% of y'all. Let's see. Ken actually said the enclosed Z is the attacking Kharkiv deployed from the Belgorod Oblast. And I think we have seen that a lot before. So I thank you for clarifying that. And I would have to say it most likely was real war footage. And so with that, I hope that answers that poll fairly well. And if we don't have another one, we are straight on into the questions.
All right, and moving into the super chats of this segment, we have a very generous $100 super chat from Panama, who says, Enforcer, when do you think Crimea will be taken back by Ukraine?
I think Crimea will most likely be taken back by Ukraine. Most likely be taken back by Ukraine in months. It's going to be the last thing that's taken back, most likely. And I said that last night about Mariupol and Melitopol as an area. And for the Ukrainian-held territory before 2022, those will be the last places taken. For the Ukrainian territory that they lost in 2014, Crimea will be the last of that as well. I just kind of see this whole entire area being the last. And so I can't crystal ball it too far into the future, sadly. But I do think that Crimea will most likely be taken before the end of 6 months from now. I could see that as a pretty reasonable timetable considering the amount of progress and speed that the Ukrainians are moving at now. And so, don't hold me to that. Don't quote me on that one. But I feel like it will most likely be 6 months at the latest, and maybe even 3 to 4 months at the earliest. And so with that, I thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Panama. It helps out this channel massively that viewers support us so much and help us to keep this thing going. And so with that, I hope I answered that question fairly well, and thank you so much for being a Lee Spring Army trooper and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $50 super chat once more from Livy Washington. And thank you very much for your continued support. They say, who do you think is going to cause the next international incident? North Korea in lobbing missiles over Japan, China invading Taiwan's airspace, or a Russian jet getting shot down in Poland's airspace? And also, Livy, that actually is a good format for a poll that I might run in just a second. You gave me all the options and a good question, too. So thank you very much for that.
And is Livy's second time supporting this channel?
It is.
No way. And I thank you so much for the support again. And also to address that, real quick, actually, that's a really great question. If I had to pick in between all of them, North Korea doing its thing, honestly, not that scary, not that impressive. They've done this multiple times before, actually. In fact, if we pull up times that North Korea fired missiles in Ukraine over Japan, I think we'll actually get a pretty decent list. The last time North Korea fired a ballistic missile over Japan was in 2017. This marks North Korea's 23rd missile launch this year, including the most ballistic missiles fired in a single year since Kim Jong-un took power. Let's see. And then they conducted 4 tests in 2020 and 8 in 2021. I'm guessing they're slowed down by coronavirus. But moving on from that. So we can already see, because I remember in 2017 hearing this news, that they have fired missiles over Japan before. So this isn't really anything new. This is just North Korea being stupid again. Honestly, I don't have a lot of respect for North Korea. That pretty much strikes me off of the tourism list of going into North Korea, because I'd probably end up like Otto Warmbier at this point. They interestingly enough, they actually keep a database, and they'll do deep research into you if you try and go into North Korea as a tourist, and if you say anything against them very strongly, you won't be allowed to go into North Korea and see it. Honestly, who would want to see it? And who would want to be living like a vacation in a lie? But moving on from that, I don't think they would be the one. China flying over Taiwan? most likely not. The Taiwanese, most likely, each and every time the Chinese try and fly an aircraft into Taiwan's airspace, they most likely scramble a couple of aircraft to go intercept them and make sure that they don't. So they probably wouldn't do that because that would lead to an air battle immediately, most likely. It wouldn't be, I guess you could say that the Taiwanese just shooting down the Chinese aircraft instantly as soon as it flies over the mainland of Taiwan. And then moving on into Russia and Poland, I would have to say out of the three, I feel that that would most likely be the most plausible scenario out of them all, although I still feel like it wouldn't happen. Russian aircraft would have to be flying over Belarus first, which would most likely be the extent of their range. If we pull that up, let me make sure I get this correct. Su-27 range. Actually, no, that would not be the extent of their range. They could fly all the way over Belarus, and then almost all the way, well, hell, I mean, like, if they wanted to fly in a straight line and have no loiter time, they can make it halfway through Germany before they had to really turn around and start heading back. So, in that regard, they definitely do have the range for their aircraft to make it to Poland, but at the same time, I feel like they most likely wouldn't do that. It would be highly unwise of the Russians to do such a thing, and there would be no diplomatic recourse for them to act like their aircraft getting shot down was unreasonable, considering that it would have been violating NATO airspace and shot down for that reason. And so with that, I hope that it addresses the question fairly well. Really interesting one. And also, it looks like Matthew has made a poll on it. And so out of that, Matthew,
Yes.
it's a very, I guess you could say, contentious poll. What do we got?
Oh, okay. So it's just kind of preliminary votes in at the moment, only 800. But looks like 31% said none of the above, 25% said China invading Taiwan's airspace, 24% said Russian jet shot down by NATO, and 20% said North Korea lobbing missiles at Japan. So it seems like many people think that China is going to try to invade Taiwan's airspace. However, it looks like none of the above is the most popular option at the moment.
And I would have to say, I feel out of the three options, if we're just comparing the three, I think that China invading Taiwan's airspace is a pretty decent option out of all of them. But I don't really see any of them happening anytime soon, because that, like, with the Russians flying into Polish airspace or the Chinese flying into Taiwanese airspace, that would have to be a deliberate act by that government to tell that aircraft to fly into that airspace, and it would be provoking a war. Usually, countries like China would conduct a surprise attack before something like that would happen. And so with that, I hope that does address the poll and also the question. And thank you so much, Livy Washington. Its support helps out this channel massively. And also, I thought it was an incredibly good question, and also some really good options as well. And so with that, we are moving on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, Livy, for the support. And I think this is the last one of this segment.
And it is, and it goes to Jose Diaz, who puts in a $20 donation and says, "Greetings from Arecibo, Puerto Rico. Do you think Russia will continue to sell military hardware to India, Egypt, and others after watching with dismay their poor performance? Gloria Ukrainia."
And thank you so much for the support. And real quick, let's see, can you reread that one again? Because I'm trying to go through the live chat because I saw someone say something, and I was trying to see if it was something that you may need to look at, but I wasn't really sure. So can you reread that one again?
He says, "Greetings from Arecibo, Puerto Rico. Do you think Russia will continue to sell military hardware to India, Egypt, and others after watching with dismay their poor performance? Gloria Ukrainia."
I believe that the Russians will most likely continue to sell their weapons worldwide. It does produce them money, and on top of that, there is always going to be markets for Russian equipment. Russian equipment is dog quality, and we all know that after watching the war in Ukraine and also all the other wars that Russia has been involved with, and also the United States versing themselves against countries that largely use Soviet-designed or Russian-made equipment. Based off of that, and already knowing that this stuff is dog quality, these countries will continue to buy Russian equipment for the sole reason a lot of them are not as wealthy as European countries that can afford to produce their own high-tech equipment or buy America's. For example, if we look at India, the GDP of India is around $2.6 trillion. If we go and look at any country, and actually, they've been going through some unprecedented growth recently. It looks like they had a little drop-off with everyone else in 2020, but if we look at another country that has a similar GDP, the United Kingdom has a similar GDP, I believe, yeah, almost exactly, to the Indians. Of course, there is a massive difference in between the United Kingdom and India. The population of the United Kingdom is only 67 million, and India has a population of about, let's see, let me go find it. It doesn't give me the population on this one. Why not? Let me go find it. India population, I believe it's like 1.2 billion at this point. No, 1.4 billion. Wow, they've been growing quickly. Hell, I mean, like the Chinese dropped off a little bit. And the Indians are just skyrocketing. They're probably about to replace China in the next couple of years as the most populous country on Earth. But you can see right there that the populations aren't really comparable, but the economies, at least their sizes, are. And so for that reason, considering that they have to support so many people, so much infrastructure for that reason, a lot of their, I guess you could say, budget is most likely tied up on that alone. And we could see that even then, it's pretty far stretched in India for sure. And so a country like India is pretty much forced by economics alone to continue to buy Russian equipment because it's a lot cheaper than the alternative Western equipment. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, just taking India as an example. And so with that, we are moving on. I hope that addresses the comment fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And we are now going to be moving on into our final news segment of the night, starting off in the northeastern Kharkiv area. And here in the area around Dvorivshin, I can't even pronounce that. I'm sorry, everyone. Tavolzhanka, we'll say Tavolzhanka instead. We can see a Ukrainian technical in action. We can see the technical rolling forward. We can see some burning vehicles down the street and what appears to be an abandoned MTLB by the Russians. We now see the technical firing down the street.
Як тобі на третій лінії? Охуєнно. Охуєнно, ні?
And so with that, that's the end of the video. And a really interesting one, seeing this Ukrainian technical in action. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news. But before we do, I've actually seen some interesting people saying some stuff about the Indian military that I did not know. And so I was trying to look into real quick and see if it's true. Some people have actually said that the Indians are buying French Mirages or Rafales. I'm trying to look into that right now. And so I'll share my screen with y'all. And we can see that the Indian Air Force appears to be modernizing over the recent years. We can see that they do have a Rafael. They also have this Hull Texas, which looks kind of like a Gripen. But I would like to actually take a look at this aircraft. Where did it come from? Well, sadly, it won't tell us. We can see that they have Rafaels, the Texas right there. It's an Indian single-engine Delta Wing. This is a domestic design that I have actually never heard of. It shares a lot of design principles with a plane like the Gripen or the Rafael, but it is really interesting to look at, I gotta say. Also, another thing, scrolling on down again, let's go try and find the helicopters. Nope, actually, that's the wrong page. Let's scroll down and try and find the helicopters. Helicopters. Also, I like the F-35 they're going to be trying to go for, called the HAL AMCA. It's just an F-35.
It's pretty like slick looking on the outside of it too.
What, the F-35?
That one right there. Is that a rendering or is that fake?
That's a rendering.
Oh, okay.
And also it looks just like the F-35, almost like exactly like the F-35. We look at it from the same angle. If I can find that, let me see if I can find that real quick. Right here, there's a rendering, I believe, of the. Well, no, that's actually, I believe,
that's real. That one is real.
And then when you see that, you can see the similarities are almost identical. Anyways, let's try and find those helicopters. We can see that they do have Apaches. It looks like an earlier variant, though. It looks like maybe what would be similar to an AH-64A, as it does not have that longbow radar dish thing on top of the on top of the rotors as I butcher my way through that statement. But let's see, where in the world's an actual list? List of Indian military aircraft. All right. So they have 36 Rafales. They have 272 Su-30s. They have 32 Tehas. So you can see that the modern aircraft make up a smaller portion of their air force. The bulk of their air force is made up of Su-30s, which are still somewhat expensive, but compared to the Western alternatives, they're not that great. We can see that they have 65 MiG-29s. Hey, maybe Ukraine could get a couple. Some Mirage 2000s, a really decent aircraft. Some Sepcat Jaguars, or Jaguars if you're British, a really neat aircraft. And 54 MiG-21s that are still in service. But moving on down to those helicopters, they got this brand new thing that they made. This is a domestic design. It's called the Prachand, and it's really interesting. It kind of looks like I guess you could say a civilian attack helicopter, well, a civilian helicopter mixed with an attack helicopter. Really interesting design. And then, of course, they got some Apaches, but only 22 of them. We can see that, once again, the bulk of their helicopter force is made up of these Druvs, which are utility helicopters, and also Mi-17s, which can double down as attack helicopters like we've seen in Ukraine. So these make up a very small amount. But still, very interesting to note, and I'm glad y'all shared that with me because I did not actually know that. I thought that most of the Indian Air Force used Soviet vintage aircraft, which it still kind of looks like they do, and also a large majority of Russian helicopters like Mi-24s and Mi-8s. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on into the next bit of news, specifically just south of the town of Tavolshanka, down here in Kupiansk, where we saw 2 Ukrainian tanks on the move again. We don't know where they're heading, but they are somewhere in this area. Dust is being kicked up from the road, and we can now see that tank up front firing, and the second tank firing as well, as they continue to advance. See it firing again, and they are laying down the heat on the Russians. So with that's the end of the video, and really nice to see that the Ukrainian tanks continue to advance and give the Russians everything, including the kitchen sink. With that, we're now moving down the Kupiansk-Vyslovyi, where we saw more Ukrainians moving forward in counterattacks in this area. Oh, that is copyrighted music, and that's scary. But we can see right here a whole bunch of Ukrainians moving down this road, sunflowers growing in the middle of it, and this armored personnel carrier moving up behind them. Now, one thing that I can tell y'all is that the Ukrainians have made ground in this area. Why have I not showed the ground that's been made? The reason why is because I don't want to give away anything up here that could give away the Ukrainians. It looks like it may be a slower push, and so they may be having to negotiate a bit more of a precarious or more difficult situation than they're facing so far in the south and the areas near Cremena. And so for that reason, I have not updated these front lines in this area, but they are taking ground as we speak. Moving further on down the line into the area of Izium, we actually got some footage of a destroyed Smerch that was being passed by in a field. So it looks like the Russian artillery, the rocket artillery, didn't get away scot-free. That Smerch got murked. Ha! Hope you saw what I did there. Moving on into the next bit of news in the area. Moving on towards the front lines themselves and in the area of the Ukrainian lines as they are today, we can see that the Ukrainian mechanized infantry is continuing to advance. And also under artillery fire. See him pointing back at the artillery.
There's that cartoon noise again.
Yeah. Hear them still moving forward, and the artillery is peppering this field, not accurately. Gosh, that was like a rolling barrage back there. Good Lord. And so with that, that's the end of the video. And once again, a really interesting look at these Ukrainians who are continuing to advance in this area as well, and also under artillery fire. Now, something I saw interesting, Matty, I think this bot does deserve a little bit of special attention because this was just hilarious to me. Kermit the Frog popped up in our live chat and said, Enforcer, why is the West paying for, interfering with, and engaged in a war where Slavs are fighting Slavs we have no kinship with? And for that reason, Kermit the Frog got executed.
That guy did that 3 times. He created like 2 different accounts to come on here and do that.
And then
there he is again.
Wait a minute, is he
Alan
back?
L. Keys. He's coming under all kinds of different names. It's a whole bot farm.
Interesting. And I gotta say, that was hilarious to see Kermit the Frog come in and say something highly charged. I've never really known Kermit the Frog for saying things that are highly charged. Yet Kermit the Frog has come in here and he's trying to lay down a pretty odd statement. And so with that, I'm wondering why you're coming out of the Sesame Street world or wherever you came from into a conflict that has no kinship with your show. But with that, we're moving on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for giving us some quality content to cover, because it looks like a lot of people are getting a good laugh out of that one. And so with that, we're now going to be moving further down the front lines into Lyman, where we've actually gotten some video of the combat and the, I guess you could say, rout that occurred there days ago. Starting off with the Ukrainians clearing the streets and making sure that Lyman has been abandoned by the Russians. This occurred sometime in late September.
Добрий день.
Now see them walking down the streets, making sure that these buildings are clear.
Потому что так надо.
They're now driving down the highway of death, and I'm going to have to pause this here real quick and actually move this over to another screen to make sure that there's not going to be anything tricky in this video. This, as you all know, the highway of death got its name for a reason. And lo and behold, I skipped forward 10 seconds, and there it was, clear as day. Sadly, I cannot show y'all that part of the video. Let me make sure I can show y'all the rest of it. That was a good call on my part. Alright, so now we're going to start off right where the body disappeared. I knew that was going to happen. As soon as I was like, they were down the highway of death, there's got to be a body here somewhere. And so here's the video from that point forward.
Контакт.
We now see them getting in a firefight with Russians further down the road as they continue to withdraw.
Воздух. В поле ебать.
Oh my god! Oh my god, that is the most jacked up AK I have ever seen.
Let's see that again.
That guy was screaming at it, it was that bad. Look at it! Oh my god! The
Whoa,
barrel's
I can't even
bent
tell
up.
what that is.
It's an AK. This thing is jacked up. The dust cover's gone. The spring is gone. The bolt's there. The barrel's bent. The handguard's gone. The stock's gone. The pistol grip's gone. The thing is, oh my god! Now I can get why the guy is going. Ah! And he holds it up like a dead rat. Now see the liberated citizens coming out, crying and hugging. We can also see the cute little dog greeting him as well. And so that's the end of the video. And I've seen, and I can already see, I know this is about to happen. Someone's about to sit there and say, the Russians make a fine weapon. The AK, even in that condition, will still fire because you can just run it through hell and it'll just keep on shooting. And someone's about to say, why do I do that impression every time I talk about that? I don't know why. It has no reason. It's just my go-to voice for that. Usually because whenever you go into a gun store and the people who swear up and down on and swear their lives to the AKs, for some reason, they all talk like that. It doesn't matter where you go in America. They all sound like that. I don't know why, but yeah, I don't think that thing will be firing anytime soon. And so I would have to say, if they had gotten a civilian-grade AK, it would have survived. But this military-grade AK, forget about it. Anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on.
And for sure, if you could fire a bullet through it, would it swing back around or would it go straight through the barrel?
Interestingly enough, that is a question that has been asked by people before, and the Germans actually made a gun that would fire like that. STG-44 curved barrel. Here's a German gun that they made for some tanks that did not have machine guns, where they could stick it out of the top and fire it, and the bullets would literally bend through the barrel and fly out of it.
Although the other one was turned back toward the person. I guess well, I can't say that word on YouTube, but it's a different type of gun that would make the user sleep a little bit.
Yeah. It's that Elmer Fudd gun, you know, where the shotgun barrel is just spun back towards them. Also, this one, for some reason, that doesn't look right. But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news outside of Lyman, where we saw the 54th Mechanized Brigade take some drone footage of the Highway of Death. And so with that, here is the video of the Ukrainians showing the Russians getting hit on the Highway of Death. There it is right there. Now we can see the Russian vehicles trying to move down the road, and the artillery is still raining down behind them and around them, and it looks like onto them. That tank stopped existing right there. And I think everyone else in the convoy is now gone blind. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and it's pretty nice to see that the Ukrainians made sure to give the Highway of Death its name and its meaning. Moving on more towards the town of Cremena, we did see that the 128th Airborne Brigade, I believe it is, let me make sure. Mountain Assault Brigade, sorry everyone, correction, was on the move today as well. And we can hear the music, of course, already playing, so we're going to have to mute that. But we can see them moving on down the road in their MTLB. It almost looks like they're going on a road trip. We can now see another one.
Cheerful as always.
Like, I love how these guys are just like putting their elbows out of it, because it seriously looks like they're just going on a little road trip. Like, oh, the beautiful countryside of Ukraine. Look at it.
You know when Mickey Mouse like hooked up the trailer and went on that road trip?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
We're going on a camping trip. Oh, boy.
Yes.
And everyone's probably like, where the hell are all the cartoon voices coming from tonight? I don't know. Also, by the way, I forgot to tell you, these aren't normal MTLBs. These are Strela 10s, which are an AA version of the MTLB. And so the video loops again. They're going on the road trip a second time, but still a great video to see, and it's good to see that the Strela 10s are still in operation in Ukraine, and that they're helping to push this offensive forward. Now, the Ukrainians have made ground in all areas of the front line today, except for the southern front and Donetsk. But sadly, we aren't covering that today. We're going to give these a little bit of time to grow, because, to be honest with you all, the amount of front line taken today was a little slow. And so I want to make sure that we don't give away any information that may be of detriment to them. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of the area of the Svatove to Cremena front line, and we're now in the area of Biloorifka, where we saw the magical exploding Russian tank. The Russians love these things, they can't get enough of them, and they are more popular now than firecrackers. Here's the video.
Oh, music.
Oh, that's music. That's really scary. Shalit said that my Mickey Mouse sounded like the South Park one, and if you've ever seen it, Matthew, I've only seen clips of it. That's a funny one. But we can see that little tank right there. Have a little bit of an explosion. I gotta say, the new firecracker. I love it. And so with that, that's the end of the video. And sadly, while I did say that almost all areas of the front line have made ground today, this area in between Biloorifka all the way down to Vasilivka has had no ground taken that we can speak of. And so with that, We are now going to be moving further down the line and into the area of Bakhmutske, where we saw a large firefight occur in between the Ukrainians and the Russians, courtesy of the Carpathian Sich Brigade, which was in the area. Firing off their AKs, and the battle is going on. We hear one of them start screaming, like some kind of war cry or something. This is one hell of a battle.
Граната.
Now see him chucking a grenade like a baseball and hitting the ground. We now hear it explode. Copyrighted me,
That grenade really didn't look like it went for.
No, it didn't. It almost like went right in front of him. Let's look at that again. He got up. Yeah, that didn't go far. That was like 9 yards, maybe. Gosh, I mean, like, then again, I know why he didn't throw it up, because it probably would have hit a tree limb and then come right back to him. But man, I mean, like, that's some balls.
And he doesn't really have any cover either, except for that slim tree.
It's the grass. Hopefully there's enough grass in between him and the grenade to kind of slow down the shrapnel. But now we can see this Ukrainian soldier, once again in tall grass, is somewhat in a field, racking his bolt on the AK and then firing it through the grass here in a second. We now see them getting up. And it looks like they're trying to get out of the field as best they can, which is a smart move. Well, it looks like that guy may have tripped and fell on the old-fashioned, you know, like, fall kind of into the ditch, try and climb out the other side, and your foot just doesn't make it. Yeah, right there. Yeah, so he tripped and fell. But that's fine. He got right back up, and he was following his friend. And now finally got into this building where the Ukrainians have a machine gun set up. And now the video cuts to this dry road, which is surprising at this time of year. And we see some Ukrainians on it. We now see them hit the ground. This guy actually slid into the ditch, which was a really nice move. Very smooth. We see a mortar round exploding to their left. The other Ukrainian soldier decides to get into the ditch as well. And if y'all know anything about the stories from the Second World War, a lot of American soldiers would hit the ditches in heavy firefights in urban areas, or really anywhere where they engaged German forces. And the Germans actually found out that this was a normal American strategy to avoid artillery fire or gunfire, by and large, from the Germans. And so their artillery units, their smaller mortars, would already be zeroed into those ditches. So as soon as the Germans saw the Americans run into the ditch, they would immediately start shelling those ditches precisely. Which is a very interesting little story. We now see them moving around the battlefield once more. Now see them running down into a cellar where some Ukrainians are hanging out. Well, you see some people saying that this is an old video, and I don't remember it. But since all of y'all are saying it's an old video, we'll cut it off here. It's still nice to see that the Ukrainians were operating that well early on in the war. I'm guessing probably early summer. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this area and on into our next bit of news, where we can then see further south that nothing happened. And in fact, when we go even further south, nothing else happened. As far as we can tell, the area all the way from Orlivka down to Vasilivka had no video reports today of any kind of activity, and the front lines have not changed whatsoever. And so by and large, it appears that this area has once again fallen into stalemate. But based off of how much activity the Ukrainians are conducting in other areas of the line and the ground that they're taking, that is totally fine by me, and we'll just give them a lot of patience and time to start turning this situation around here in the southern area of Ukraine, in Donetsk, and the southern front south of Zaporizhia. And so with that, we have now covered all of the news from every area of Ukraine today, and it's now time to go to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And so without further ado, here is the speech from the President of Ukraine.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Провів сьогодні засідання Ставки Верховного Головнокомандувача. Основний пункт порядку денного – це наш рух до звільнення всієї української землі і все те, що необхідно для реалізації нашої оборонної операції. Постачання зброї та боєприпасів, взаємодія з партнерами, матеріальне забезпечення, протидія новим видам озброєнь, які є у окупантів. Звичайно, не можу розголошувати конкретні питання, які обговорювалися Ставкою, але більшість доповідей, прийняті звіти і затверджені плани точно порадують українців і точно засмутять окупантів. Бо за все їхнє зло вони будуть відповідати. Відповідати перед нашою зброєю, перед українським судом і перед міжнародним правом. Ніхто з них від цього не втече. До речі, хочу сьогодні відзначити особовий склад оперативно-стратегічного угруповання «Олександрія» за створення умов для успішного наступу, за планування і підготовку активних дій на Херсонщині, саме тих наших дій, які вже дають відчутний результат, а буде й більше. Тільки за цю добу на Херсонщині від псевдореферендуму було звільнено і стабілізовано такі населені пункти, як Нововоскресенське, Новогригорівка і Петропавлівка. Рух продовжується. Також я хочу відзначити воїнів наших повітряних сил, яким сьогодні вдалося збити 6 безпілотників іранського виробництва, які окупанти намагались використовувати проти наших міст. 3 безпілотники були збиті зенітниками 302-го зенітного ракетного Харківського полку, а ще 3 збили наші льотчики-винищувачі з 204-ї Севастопольської бригади тактичної авіації. Я дякую за влучність, хлопці. А зараз скажу оккупантам. Даже если вы еще где-то в мире найдете какое-то другое оружие с таким же естественным для вашего русского мира названием, как эти вот иранские шахиды, которыми вы пытаетесь бомбить такие наши города, как, например, Белая Церковь, это все равно уже ничем вам не поможет. Вы уже проиграли, потому что даже сейчас, на 224-й день полномасштабной войны, вам приходится объяснять своему обществу, зачем все это нужно. Это война, лживая мобилизация и самоуничтожение всех перспектив вашего народа. Когда люди чувствуют свою правоту и находятся на своей собственной земле, они сами все знают. Им не нужны навязчивые лекции по альтернативной истории и сеансы политинформации каждый день. То на встрече с учителями, то на совещании о ходе сезонных полевых работ. Украинцы знают, за что воюют. И все больше и больше граждан России осознают, что они должны погибнуть просто потому, что один человек не хочет прекратить войну. Очевидно, кто победит. Сьогодні в Лимані, Святогірську, Яровій, Донецької області дала ще одна ознака повернення нормального життя. Ми відновили там виплату пенсій. Видаємо і продуктові набори, гуманітарну допомогу. Повернення українського прапора означає, що і для Донбасу, і для усіх інших територій, які були тимчасово окуповані Росією, знову стає можливим спокійне і соціально забезпечене життя. Ми маємо сьогодні і кілька подій, які дуже вагомо підтверджують віру світу в майбутнє України, довіру світу до нашої міцності. По-перше, починаємо приєднання України до Організації економічного співробітництва і розвитку. Це одна з найбільш престижних глобальних організацій. Вона об'єднує 38 найсильніших держав. Це демократії, це ринкові економіки, це більшість економічного потенціалу світу. Від Австрії до Японії, від Сполучених Штатів Америки до Південної Кореї, від Канади до Туреччини. Україна буде серед них і у цьому форматі. Ми подали нашу заявку на вступ, вона підтримана організацією. Україна отримала спеціальний статус країни, що приєднується. І всі необхідні умови для повноправного членства ми виконаємо. А вже цьогоріч у Києві запрацює регіональний офіс організації. Для нас це означатиме ще одну потужну лінію економічної, технологічної і ціннісної співпраці з глобальним співтовариством. Друга подія. Разом з нашими друзями Іспанією та Португалією подаємо заявку на проведення чемпіонату світу по футболу 2030 року. Це наша спільна заявка, шанс на її задоволення доволі високий. І справа не тільки в тому, що наші країни відповідають критеріям, яких необхідно дотримуватись, щоб отримати право проведення чемпіонату. Справа ще й в тому, що буде дуже символічним, коли 3 країни Європейського Союзу – Іспанія, Португалія і Україна – зможуть разом провести чемпіонат світу. Говорив сьогодні з генеральним секретарем НАТО Єнсом Столтенбергом. Дуже позитивна бесіда, подякував йому за підтримку, скоординували наші найближчі спільні кроки і взаємодії. Вдень провів дуже предметну нараду щодо нашої підготовки до зимового сезону. Ми повністю усвідомлюємо всі ризики і знаємо, що окупанти теж готуються до зими. На всіх рівнях влади опрацьовуються сценарії, щоб захистити наших людей. Ми говоримо чесно, зима буде складною. Але щоб її пройти, ми накопичимо газ, вугілля, усе інше, що необхідно. Ми працюємо для того, щоб підготуватися. І важливо, щоб так само підготовленими до цього періоду підійшли наші партнери. Чим більше ми разом зробимо зараз для того, щоб наблизити мир, чим більше буде нашої співпраці і тиску на Росію, тим безпечніше може бути для нас усіх в Європі цей зимовий період. Зокрема, я про це говоритиму завтра у своєму виступі на першому саміті Європейської політичної спільноти, який відбудеться в Празі. Окрім цього, завтра ж спілкуватимусь з представниками одного з найбільш важливих think tanks англомовного світу, інституту Лоуї в Австралії. Будуть інші дипломатичні активності. Я дякую усім, хто воює і працює заради нашої перемоги. Я дякую усім, хто допомагає Україні і тисне на Росію заради миру. Обов'язково переможемо. Слава Україні!
And so with that is the end of the speech from President Zelenskyy. And that also rounds out day 225 of the news in the war in Ukraine. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to cover the past 24 hours of news with y'all once again, and I hope y'all have enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed covering it with y'all. The Lee Spring Army, of course, was recognized in an incredible way today with that beautiful little artillery shell that had inscribed on it, "The Lee Spring Army sends its regards," and was fired out of an M777 towards the Russians. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and with that, we're now about to start off the fun again as we're moving into the question segment that will be here for the rest of the night. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and this is the final question segment of the night, and we only have one poll to address, and that question was, do you think the USA is the innovator in military tech, which is copied by virtually everyone else? It looks like 59% said yes, we innovate and get copied, 9% said I don't know, and 32% said no, other nations innovate too. Now on this one, I would have to say overall, it seems like the United States is at the forefront of military tech most of the time, just because of the sheer amount of money that we put into research. But other countries do innovate, but not nearly as fast and as frequently as we do. And also, you see we get copied quite a bit because our designs are pretty good, especially in China and Russia. But Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are is that the United States is certainly the world innovator in terms of arms and weaponry in the modern day. No other country spends the amount of money that the United States spends on their defense systems. However, that is not to say that there aren't any major technological, I guess you could say, movers and shakers out there in the world that aren't America. Sweden, for example, believe it or not, is one of the, I guess you could say, most advanced in terms of their arms industry in the world, and they've set a worldwide precedent for that specific purpose. If you remember, Matthew, remember the cloaking panels that we saw at one point where it makes the tank disappear on thermals?
Yes.
Those were developed by the Swedes. And a whole bunch of other stuff is developed by the Swedish military, and I guess you could say the defense industry as a whole, which puts them on up there. Some of that stuff is leading edge. Even the United States hasn't really delved into some of the things that the Swedes do. And so while I think the majority of stuff around the world is being innovated in the military sector by the United States, there are some major diamonds in the rough out there, like the Swedish, who are also innovators as well. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on into the next one.
All right, and that is our only poll. So we are moving into our super chat questions. And up first, I want to give a big shout out to, hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly, Theodore Grigorgas, who puts in a $20 donation but does not leave a comment. And Theodore, I think you're also a first-time supporter, and thank you very much for your support in helping to keep us running. And the Enforcer would like to add a few words himself.
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Theodora. I have not heard your name before, I don't believe. And so this must be the first time that you're supporting this channel. And if so, I've got to thank you so much for the support. It helps us massively. And without y'all support, these streams aren't able to keep running. Y'all help us to eat, pay our college, make sure to save up for law school, because we're still going and doing that, hopefully. And all other sorts of things. Also, y'all help with the donut fund, because I usually get donuts for myself. Now, Psyops forced me into that. By the way, where has Psyops been? I haven't seen him often around here. Hopefully he's all right. But Psyops, of course, forced me into getting donuts. And after I got them, I liked them. They were really good. We get our donuts from a great place. I won't say where, because then, well, would it really hurt? Would it really hurt, Matthew, if I said exactly where I got the donuts from?
It probably would.
Maybe not. I mean, like, they already know I live in Birmingham, so, you know, I'm trying to weigh that out in my head. We will avoid that for tonight. But, you know, I was thinking maybe it would promote their business a little bit if I said where they were.
I don't know. I would think it over.
Yeah, we'll mull that one over a little bit. But still, I love the donuts so much that I get about a dozen every Tuesday in the morning, and I eat like one of them, and then I bring the other 11 to them to one of my classes at college, and then I just let everyone have a donut. I think it's a really nice thing to do. I like doing nice things, and everyone else appreciates it a lot when they get like a free donut in the morning, because about half of them haven't eaten breakfast. So y'all help me to do nice things like that. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that does address your support incredibly well and lets you know that you are one of the people who are helping this channel to keep going. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Sean Tiz, who says, Russia is going to need a mercy rule. And yes, they definitely will need that.
Yeah, and I think it was...
But they're not going to get it, though, because Ukrainians are going to steamroll them.
Yeah, and I would have to say at this point, they may need the mercy rule, but I don't think anyone's going to be willing to give them a mercy rule, considering how well the Ukrainians are doing. They're just going to get beat to a pulp. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I think that's a pretty good joke, too. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. And Magic Sky Girl said, Krispy Kreme? Ew, no. That last thing I would ever eat donut-wise is Krispy Kreme. The name, I mean, I don't mean to bash them or anything, but the name doesn't even sound good. And their donuts aren't even good. I mean, like in my opinion, I think that mom and pop shop donuts beat out the major donut like companies every single time. Like, look at this donut. It's pitiful. These things are flat.
I'll take them.
I mean,
I'll take them.
like they're come on, Matthew. You really think these are good?
Yeah, I do actually. That looks really good right now.
Well, okay, I'll tell you what, Matthew. I'll go get you a donut from the place I've been getting the donuts, and then we'll see. In fact, that might be a video. We might get a donut from Krispy Kreme and then another one from another place and try them and make a food review channel. And because, you know,
man, we're going to be food review of the week before long. I know it.
Hello, everyone. This is food review running on empty. Do it, Matthew. Do it real quick.
I can't even bring myself to do it. Oh, but I have to say, Enforcer, that I see some people in the live chat saying that Tim Hortons. I've heard about Tim Hortons, but we don't have it down here in the South. I think it's up north only.
Tim Hortons donuts. I mean, these look better. I'm not gonna lie. They look puffier. That one kind of looks odd. It's like it's got hexagons on it.
It's kind of thick.
It's kind of thick. But I don't. But I don't know. I mean, I would have to go and try them. But what I'm talking about, homemade donut. Hopefully, I can find one that looks.
I'll be honest. I like the donuts that taste like diabetes. To be totally honest, I like a really sweet donut.
Oh my god, man! Like, I love the donuts that taste kind of a little salty, but still largely sweet. I love donuts like that. I think it emphasizes what a real donut ought to be. But, you know, then again, everyone's got their opinion. I just don't like Krispy Kreme. I don't know why. I just kind of grew up and had Krispy Kreme enough that I was like, you know what? I've had enough of these things. And so I always go and get the mom and pop donuts from here forward. But with that, I hope that throw up a poll on that. Let's see who likes Krispy Kreme and who doesn't like Krispy Kreme. Like, let's make this the poll. Would you rather have Krispy Kreme or a mom and pop shop donut? Oh.
And it was already going up anyway.
All right. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Carolyn, who says, where are those impeccably equipped and physically fit soldiers that we see on Victory Day? Putin keeping them close to guard him, eh?
And that's a great question. And to answer it, it's actually... These soldiers have actually been sent to the front. We've seen a lot of military parade vehicles like BMP-2, Russian BMP-2. I typed that like I was Spanish. If y'all don't know, in the Spanish language, you always put, I believe it is the noun first and then the adjective second. So instead of saying something like a blue bull, you say bull blue if you were to directly translate it, which is really odd being a native English speaker. But we have seen BMPs.
Wait a minute. Enforcer, I have to point this out real quick. The guy came back again, the bot. He came back under the name Animal this time and said, while your response made everyone giggle, you evaded the question. And he said the question once again. Man, you're a persistent bot.
Put him
but
down.
the Stugna is also consistent, and it once again was on target. And also, I have to point out a comment by Teresa H., who said Tato nuts are the best. They're in Mississippi. And man, I love Tato nuts, but we're not in the area, though. It's too far away.
No freaking way. We actually used to go down to Biloxi into Ocean Springs, and we got Tato nut donuts all the time. They are delicious. Honestly, top notch. There's also a place down here somewhere that makes exquisite little pedophores. I forgot which one it was, but
don't say that. Don't say that, Enforcer. That might give away our location.
Well, I mean, like, we're in Birmingham, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, but definitely don't say it, Enforcer. It's going to give away our location for sure.
And also, speaking of which, moving on from that, since Matthew is now censoring me, where's free speech? That's what all the bots always say. This place right here, Cafe du Monde. I remember going here back a long time ago when I was a little kid, and they have delicious beignets. I'm kind of giving y'all like a confectionery tour of the South, but there they are. They're delicious. I like beignets a lot. I think they're a simple, good little, I guess you could say, like, dessert. And I gotta say, now that I'm looking at this, I kind of want to go back and have, like, some of these beignets, but then again, you know, you gotta deal with New Orleans, which is very different.
I don't like New Orleans.
New Orleans is really different from the rest of the South. A lot of people know it as a party city, and you know it is what it is. It's just that I don't know. I don't know. I haven't gone to New Orleans a lot. I'd have to go there again.
It feels kind of nasty. I like Louisiana as a state, but like there's something about New Orleans that just doesn't feel clean.
Well, I mean, you know, if you talk to anyone, the joke is that Bourbon Street smells like piss because so many drunk people pee in the street, you know, because that's what they do. So that's why it may not feel clean. I hope you knew that before, Matthew, because that's why Bourbon Street has a very particular smell.
They call it Bourbon Street, but it should be called something else.
They call it Bourbon Street, but the real name should be Urine Street. But at least they got the color of the liquid right, you know? But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And also, it looks like the poll has finally fleshed itself out, and 44% of y'all agree with me and enjoy the homemade mom and pop donuts. 33% of y'all like Krispy Kreme, and then 24% of y'all like none of the above. Apparently, y'all just hate donuts. And I hate that for y'all. I hope y'all come to the light one day. But still interesting to see. But it's good to know that Krispy Kreme does have a clientele out there that does enjoy their donuts. Sadly, I'm not one of them. But you know, I'm not going to trash them too bad. They are donuts. They do have that going for them. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, Enforcer X Nola X said, "OMG, it's pronounced Café du Monde."
I'm sorry. I've never really spoken French.
Enforcer, I know for a fact I just mispronounced that, but I give it a good shot.
Wait a minute, hang on. Let me read that. Café du Monde. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Said in the most Alabama way possible.
Can I have one of them Café Dumans? But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and on to our next super chat. We have a $20 donation from Oats Air, who says, "Do you think the Russian troops will start cannibalizing as they start running out of food, or will they just revolt and go home to their potato farms, Slava Ukraine?"
Heavens.
And man, is that a dark one.
Heavens, no, Sarah. I don't think they'd be going into cannibalism. That cannibalism usually is reverted into when there is no food and there's no option of any escape and you're just stuck there. That's when people start eating each other. The Russians do have the option of escape. They can surrender to the Ukrainians, or they can try and run elsewhere. They do have the ability for now to run to a place that may have food. So for now, I don't see cannibalism being highly likely. I see them most likely surrendering or retreating and running back into Russia. One or the other, but I don't think they'll be eating themselves yet. But thank you once again for the very morbid question, Oats Air. That was a really crazy one, but still a really good one at that. Although it was kind of weird. Great question, because they are starting to starve. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Oats Air, and I hope we were able to answer that one fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, Kaltenberg puts in a 20 and waves hello.
And hey, what's up, Kaltenberg? I saw you throw that in earlier, actually, and I was like, that's pretty funny. And of course, hello, and thank you so much once again, Kaltenberg, for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. Because without y'all, it's not possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Adam Larson. And also, Magic Sky Girl said, what a transition from donuts. And yes, that was quite a sharp transition, wasn't it?
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, we went from donuts to eating people. I think everyone's just hungry in the live chat tonight, and they're hungry for anything. They just want to eat. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that super chat was from, I'm trying to get back up to it real quick while my spreadsheet screws up, was from Adam Larson, who put in a 20 and said, "What do we know about the food our Ukrainian guys have at the front? Are they eating good? Does the billions of dollars America is spending on the war include good MREs?"
I think we have sent over some MREs. We don't really get a good look at what they are eating, but one thing that we have been able to tell is that they're eating quite well. There's not really a lot to add on to that, sadly. I hate to say that, because we don't have any exact details except for one video of some kind of a French-British hybrid MRE that was made at some point. So sadly, we don't really know, but I'm assuming that they are eating quite well, because none of them look malnourished, I'll say that. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And someone said that there was this place called Ball Fours in Australia that makes good donuts. And so it's just to make y'all a little bit hungrier, let's go take a look at Ball Fours, which kind of looks like it is nearly the Australian equivalent to Krispy Kreme, considering that it looks like it's a pretty big company. Ball Fours is a South Australian wholesale bakery. Ball Fours Bakery is Australia's oldest bakery, established in Adelaide, 1853. Gosh, wow, that's old. Like, goodness. That's,
Look at that cake.
Man, they got that cake. They got the whole bakery.
That looks good.
But let's look at this sweet.
Ooh, savory looks good, too.
Oh, yeah, that looks really good. That kind of looks like a mince pie. And this website's taking a long time to load. I also like their logo. I really like that. Traditional sweets. So, they don't really tell us a lot about their traditional sweets, do they?
They're traditional sweets.
There's a frog cake. Hopefully no frogs in it. And classic chunk donut. We still still make many of these classics. I think the use is a typo. We still make many of these classics today with authentic recipes and baking's most modern techniques. I would like to see an Australian person say, "Well, you still," because that just sounds weird. But let's go on to savory. What in the world's under savory? And Cakespoo just says, "We have meat pies here with tomato sauce." And I actually, for some reason, Americans give meat pastries bad raps. But we went to Britain, and we had these things for the first time called pasties, which are made in Cornwall, and apparently some kind of a roadside food all over Britain. And they were delicious. I really loved it. It was like a meaty pastry thing. But let's take a look at this thing. quality pies, pasties. They make pasties. There's one right there, actually.
Oh, wow.
And
a big shout out to Road Chef. That was like a lifesaver when we were over there.
Yes, I mean, like, it was good. And these look really good, too. If we ever go to Australia, we're going to make sure to try some of this. And so thank you so much for letting us know about Ball 4s. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Adam Larson, who says, what do we know? I've already read that one. I forgot to put the little red check on it. But thanks once again, Adam. You got a second recognition as well, so we appreciate it very much. And moving on to our actual next super chat, we have a $20 donation from Carson Larimore, who says, I think the video of the BMP crew surrender was a training exercise because in no way a Russian soldier would have underwear that clean and that white. Washing machines are hard to find in Ukraine these days, you know?
And thank you so much for the support. And also, I love the joke right there. That was a pretty good one. It actually caught me off guard. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. And I'd have to agree, those pants were far too white these days. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the good joke. I enjoyed it.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Oats Air, who says, I think I might be too hungry. Ripping apart beef jerky and thinking of cannibalism. I think we should lighten it up. So let's get a less morbid question answered from the chat, and Slava Ukraine. And Oats Air, thank you once again for your second support of the night. We do appreciate it very much. And this live chat question goes to, let's see here. Looking through, just trying to find one real quick. Justin Nours, who says, why is Russia not booby trapping and blowing up stuff left behind?
Russians are probably not doing that because they lack supplies anyways, and they're also retreating so quickly. This isn't anything that's planned. For example, down in the Kherson area, it literally took the Ukrainians almost a day to move from Dechany all the way down towards Malove and then up towards Sukhanove. So they didn't really have time, like a day or two, to prepare for their withdrawal. It wasn't really anything planned out. This was something that they had to do at the spur of the moment, and so they didn't really have time to rig up explosives or booby traps to a large degree, although there probably are some out there, just not at a massive level. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and thank you so much, Oats Air, for sponsoring a live chat question. And also, tearing apart beef jerky and thinking of cannibalism is kind of odd, but I'm not going to judge. But so with that, I thank you so much for the support, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have an $18 super chat from the Duncan VR, who says, Baba, moo, Baba, can we fundraise another Sign My Rocket and send it to Putin? These latest sheep, Baba, should just surrender. At least they would get fed. Baba, moo. Life in the Ukraine jail is better for them. Baba. Yeah!
And thank you so much for the support, Duncan. And of course, it's not a Duncan super chat without the animal noises. And to answer that question, we actually did not have to pay a cent for that video that you saw at the beginning. That was actually done entirely off of the generosity and kindness of the guy that we talked to from Sign My Rocket. He had them write that on a shell and then fire it, and also say that message before they fired it. And was that neat or what? And was that really nice of them or what? They did that entirely because they enjoy what this channel does and what we've been able to do for Ukraine so far. And so maybe I can reach out to them and ask them to do something even bigger, like a Malka or a Peon, but I don't want to push it too far. I thought that what they did was incredibly kind today, and I'm happy with that alone. In fact, I'm so happy with it, it's always going to be in our intro card from this point forward. And so with that, also, another thing, Matthew, I was just thinking about this. We are so far the only channel, and I gotta say this just for the record here, we are the only channel on YouTube that has had an artillery shell fired off in the name of our channel. With that in mind,
exclusive.
Yeah, it's exclusive. If you wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you see, it's exclusive. So I wonder if theirs are going to be popping up elsewhere. I wonder.
But I imagine so, because honestly, Enforcer, I mean, they say flattery is like the best way. Like, wait a minute, I got it backwards. Impersonation is a form of flattery, isn't it? There we go.
Yes.
It seems like we're getting imitated in a few different places, and honestly, I'm not really offended because if somebody is imitating it, they must like the content.
And also, yes, that is something we've noticed. We've noticed that some channels have started to do things that we do, and I find it hilarious at times. Other times it gets kind of in the area of uncanny valley. It's like it's almost
some people copy very closely, like so closely. I'm like, huh, look at that.
Like it's almost like the United States makes a Humvee, so then China also makes a Humvee. It's almost like that similar sometimes in some places, and we have seen it. But it's kind of interesting, and I was wondering when I was showing that tonight, I was like, I wonder if other channels are going to go and pay SciMyRocket.com to have them do that, to put it in their intro. I was like, I wonder.
It's coming.
It probably is. It probably most likely is. But with that, we are on to the next one. And also, I have to say again, that was incredibly cool of them to do Duncan VR, and I was happy with it right now. And you know, maybe more can be done in the name of the Lee Spring Army. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 donation from Magic Sky Girl, who says, to the Anything But Donut Fund.
And thank you so much for the support, Magic Sky Girl. We are going to try and make sure not to put in too much about donuts. Because, you know, we all like donuts, but you can get too donutted out. I'm making people starve in here, and so we will put that towards motor oil. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much once again, Magic Sky Girl. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $30 super chat from Lanny Lutz, who does not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Lanny, for the support. We do appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, would you like to add anything to that?
And yes, thank you so much, Lonnie Lutz, for supporting this channel. You didn't leave a comment, but of course, as my usual spiel goes, you have helped out this channel to keep running. Help us to keep those lights on, help us to keep those car tires rotated, and help us to get donuts for more people at college. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. And also, I saw an interesting comment in here, moving on to a comment from JNN321M. The Ukrainians wrote your YouTube channel in one of their HIMARS missiles. When? Where's the video of that? I want to see it, because if that's real, I would love to see that. That would be insane to me. And wouldn't that be... Well, actually, Matthew, interestingly enough, I'm going to share this with you. We actually came up with, on a Discord call, a Lee Spring Army flag. And before I show it to you, keep in mind, there's supposed to be a little bit extra to it. Let me get rid of some stuff that I just put on there for fun. One second, everyone. It's going to show up on y'all's screen any minute now. Just going to make sure that everything's all squared away on it and looks good and solid. 1 second, everyone. 1 second. It's about to pop up. All right. So, there's also a little additional thing here that I haven't included on this one because it's Canva after all. But here it is. I'm going to scroll this over to the screen. The Lee Spring Army flag.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? We based it off of the Danish flag, the official Danish flag. I'm trying to find the one that we looked at on that call. It was this one, actually. How it has like those little trailing ends, kind of.
Yes.
Like add those
I like
to
that.
Yeah, add those to this flag, and that's kind of what it's supposed to be similar to. And I was thinking, wouldn't that be cool if we made these flags and somehow one of them ended up in Ukraine?
That would be cool.
That would be pretty cool to see one on the front lines like that. And so, of course, a really cool idea. I think that would be really neat, honestly. But you know, we're only dreaming at this point. And also, can we throw up a poll, Matthew? I see we have a really good one up now if you would like to address it. And after we address it, could we throw up a new one to see if people do like this Lee Spring Army flag or not?
All right, and real quick to address this poll, the question is there such thing as good MREs? 63% said yes, MREs can be good. 24% said, I don't know. And 12% said no, MREs aren't known for good. Now, from what I've heard, MREs are good depending on which one you get. I think there's one like Stroganoff or something like that everybody always talks about. I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but I hear that one quite a bit. But I'm not really sure completely. So, Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
I would have to say, having eaten seldom MREs, they're good. Okay, they're good. They're not terrible, but they're okay. As my mom always says, it's okay. I think there's better things out there to eat. Of course, anything cooked is far better. But still, the MREs will get you by, and it's nothing to whine and complain and act like the end of the world's coming. It's just something to sustain you in the meantime, at least the ones I've eaten. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well, because I would have to kind of fall in that, I don't know, category of 24%. And so with that, let's throw up a poll to see if people do like this flag, because I think that would be cool to see if people did, because I'm just wondering, man, does Teespring make flags?
I'm not really sure out the bat. I know they make posters. I'm not sure about flags. Probably so.
Interesting. Because if they didn't make flags, maybe we could find someone who did make flags. I don't know. But let's see. It needs some 44% of y'all said it needs some redesigning. Oh, man. I have seen some people. There are limitations, though. We will not be putting Ukrainian colors on this flag, because that's one thing that our channel will not do, because it kind of feels like we're riding on the coattails of Ukraine if we do that. Also, I don't know. I mean, like, it looks like it needs some redesign and is dropping now. It looks like some people are 50-50 on it. Smaller portion think it's perfect. Now even more people think it needs some redesigning. So we'll just wait and see for the results to come in. But I thought it was a nice flag, and, I don't know. But anyways, also someone said Cornwall's flag. It's really close. It is really close. The flag of Cornwall. It's very, very similar, actually. Like, I never thought about that until you said it. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there is a flag out there that looks a lot like it. But with that, I hope we all enjoy talking about the flag a little bit, or at least the idea for a flag. And real quick, if y'all have an idea for a flag and make a design for one, please make sure to send it to me over my Discord DM. Of course, there are a couple of rules. We will not allow Ukrainian colors, and we want it to be simplistic in nature. This one was about as simplistic as we could, in the call, as I could get it, while keeping it very nice looking. So we don't want, like, anything too nutty, where there's like 9 or 10 colors, or, there's an incredibly intricate design on it. It just needs to be simple and be distinct.
I wonder if you could, like, include elements from, like, a whole bunch of different flags in the flag. Like, I was about to say maybe put, like, a small version of each and every flag from basically every country behind it, but that might be a little too busy.
Ooh, yikes. Yeah, that would be way too busy. One thing that we were thinking, though, is about the Royal Standard. I brought this up on stream. Nope, Royal Standard flag, not the Royal Standard building. The Royal Standard, which, the royal family has. And I was thinking, wouldn't that be cool if we put, like, a little honey badgers up here, and like a V shape, and down here, and then add some other symbols that the Leaf Spring Army uses commonly on the flag. But then once I did that in the call, no one was really a big fan of it. I honestly wasn't either, so it was dropped. But it's still an idea. Although
Oh goodness, I saw a chat in the live chat. That is a good point. I'm not going to point it out specifically, but it kind of does look like that now that you mentioned it.
Who said it? Who said what?
Richie MC.
Richie MC.
A little bit. I can kind of see it.
I don't see it. I don't know why everyone keeps on. Well, every once in a while that keeps on being thrown out. I have no idea why, because I just don't see it. But with that, we are now moving on into the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is from Livy Washington, once again, who puts in another $25 donation and says, who is the best replacement for Putin? Shoigu, Prigozhin, or Kadyrov? Yikes. Considering Kadyrov got promoted and Shoigu and Prigozhin are fighting each other, could be interesting, and Slava Ukraine. And before the enforcer answers that question, I'm not really sure if any of those guys are going to be the best replacement for Putin. I think that somebody that's not currently in the regime is probably going to be a better option if they can potentially get in a position to take power, but that's probably a wishful thinking. But what are you thinking, Enforcer?
I would have to say that Kadyrov would never make it to being the leader of Russia. You have to remember that there are some culturally limiting factors there, and Russia is largely controlled by the Slavic Russians of the West here in the north, and not so much anyone really from, I guess you could say, the Siberian areas or the southern areas near the Caucasus mountain range. And for that reason, I don't think that Kadyrov would ever make it that high up, because he would have to get the favor and the support of the Russians that live here in the west near Moscow. Shoigu, he does actually come from, I believe, Tuva, if I remember correctly. He comes from Tanatuva. but I'm not exactly sure if he would make it. And the other guy that you mentioned, I don't really know a lot about him, honestly. So out of the two, since I only know Shoigu, I would most likely say he would be the one to step up out of the three. But then again, I don't really know a lot about the other guy, and I would have to get some more information to answer that question as best as I could.
And also, we're not really sure if these guys are more extreme than Putin because they've never had an opportunity to really take the lead yet.
And that is true. That's another great point as well. But then again, I'm guessing the philosophy is anyone's better than Putin at this point, but who really knows if that statement is true or not. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for supporting the channel, Livy. You've helped us out massively tonight and continue to help this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, folks, I see a lot of people wanting to put in their ideas or their designs for the flag. And if you do have a sample you want to show us or design, you can always put it into the Merch Ideas channel on the Discord. It's under the Public Channels tab. And I will definitely take a look at all of them. Make sure you tag me in your message, and I will definitely take a look. And I'm sure the Enforcer will as well. But we'd love to see your designs, and maybe, potentially, we might put it on the merch one day. If that's okay with the Enforcer.
No, I'm just playing. We probably would make it a merch run too. Probably a permanent item as well, considering that it would be the L.S.A. flag, so may as well just make it a permanent item. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up we have a $45 super chat from Lanny Lutz once again, who says, Enforcer, Sunday night, someone asked about new vehicles for Russia. I think it was KAMA3 43269 with autocannon. What do you think?
I think someone asked about the new vehicles for Russia. Kamas. Well, we'll pull that up real quick. Also, by the way, Matthew, can we get a count on the super chats real quick?
We currently have about, let's see, a little under 30 left.
Oh, that's actually not that much. But it looks like these things are actually somewhat old, and they're also incredibly ugly. These things have been produced from 1999 to the present day. So I think these are not necessarily new. They're about 23 years old at this point, and also they are god ugly. Like, look at this one. What in the world? Someone was on some massive drugs or looked at a pile of dog puke and said that would make a great camouflage pattern for this vehicle. Like, I don't even know who in the world was thinking about this.
They put it in like the colors of when it's on fire and about to blow up.
Yeah.
Like it would be on the battlefield. It already matches. The Ukrainians will think it's already blown up.
Yeah, probably. I mean, like, honestly, that was a really good one as a joke. And also, look, this one's in Chechnya. It's just god ugly, and I don't think that's it because it's just a really old one. But with that, I thank you so much for the support, Lonnie Lutz, and a pretty good poke at it. But it looks like it's about 23 years old, so it may be something else, but I'm not entirely sure. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have an $11 super chat from Korea Wandering, who says, this conflict reminds me of the Russo-Japanese War of 1903, where the Russians, using 19th century military tech, faced a Prussian-trained Japanese army using early 20th century tech. Any thoughts?
I would have to largely agree with that assessment. It is once again the Russians overestimating their abilities and underestimating their opponents and going up against them. The Japanese set the bar in Asia for what a top-rate military would look like, and for that reason they would go on to dominate in not only Manchuria, but the rest of mainland China, Indochina, and also the remainder of the southern and I guess you could say eastern Pacific at the very onset of the Second World War. But of course, their fate would turn rather quickly. But that is quite true, and I would say it is very reminiscent of that kind of historical example as well. Really hit it right on the nail with that. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again. And real quick, someone actually asked a good question. I think there should be some rules or conventions about flag designs. Someone asked, what color should the flag be? The flag is going to be a grayscale of a sort. So any colors in between white and black, any shade varying in between that, is fine. The reason being, some of y'all may be like, well, why has it got to be kind of like in that black category? The channel colors are black. If we look at the channel banner, you'll see that there's a black color behind me, the Enforcer, and then there's this kind of like gray field, and then there's this picture of some Ukrainian tanks. But beyond the Ukrainian tanks, the channel colors are mostly gray, black, and white, as you can see right there. And so that's the general colors we want the flag to revolve around in a way. And so keep that in mind. We want to make sure it's simple, so we don't want anything insane. Like, for example, doing anything like the U.S. flag, and the U.S. flag's not a bad flag. It's a beautiful one, but still, trying to do it for a flag like ours with 13 alternating stripes, I feel like that does make it a little bit complicated, a little bit too visually complex. Some flags to take inspiration from. We'll also look at these flags here, like this Nicki Minaj U.S. flag. Like, what in the world? Anyways, some flags to take inspiration from: the German flag, or you could go with the French flag. Or, you could go with the British flag, which is getting more complicated, much more complex, but still a very stylish, very distinct flag. You could really go with any of them, but we want to make sure that the flag design is simple. And we also want to make sure that it includes some kind of symbol that's associated with the Lee Spring Army. I don't really think Lee Spring would look great. I can't really think of how that would be implemented well. And we also want it to be something that will be tasteful in the future, because I have seen some suggestions like maybe put a little helmet on the Badger. That would be neat, but at the same time, it may make it look a little odd, in a way. I think we would try and make the Badger a little bit more complex in its detail, really, and try and make it a little bit I guess you'd say more realistic looking. That would be probably a goal as well with the flag. So keep all that in mind. If you are looking for a way to make that flag, make sure to reference someone to this point in this stream and have them listen to some of the rules and conventions, because we want it to be a really nice, tasteful flag that could go on throughout this channel's future and everything and still be an incredibly good looking flag. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, WFTU puts in a $10 donation and says, tonight's plain language telegraph message: riddle me this, Putin. What goes into Ukraine? A man and comes back a car. A Russian soldier equals no decoding, just typing the Morse letters as heard.
And thank you for deciphering the Morse code message, and also thank you for the support. And of course, I thank you for decoding the Morse message. Why do we always say decoding? Because for some reason it just seems like it's decoding. I know that
It sounds cool.
Yeah, it sounds cool, and for some reason, I don't know. That's just kind of the word I gravitate to whenever I hear about Morse code. But you did hit it on the nail correctly, and of course, I thank you so much for the support and also deciphering the message. And I hope you'll like that riddle as well, because it wasn't really a riddle; it's just more of a statement of fact. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Technical Fool, who says, here, have a beer or an expensive coffee before someone agitates the video again.
And thank you so much for the support. And we are going to have a little bit of coffee. I don't know about beer. Beer is... I'm actually not old enough to drink beer yet, so I may have to abstain from that for at least a couple of more months. But I do thank you so much for the support, and of course, I will make sure to have some coffee. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Rob Bertram, who says, why not have a fundraiser for Sign My Rocket? We could sponsor enough shells for an entire campaign.
And that is a brilliant idea. The problem, though, is that GuideStar does not allow us to fundraise through their program, which is the only program we can use on YouTube, to support, I guess you could say, fundraisers that would go towards the, I guess you could say, conducting of war. So sadly, we cannot do that due to the limitations that YouTube kind of sets on us, but it is a very cool idea, and if I did have the ability to do that, I certainly would. But with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And next up, we have a $10 super chat from William Allen, who says, the Honey Badger with Leaf Spring needs to have a 155mm round added to it. Combat loose springs.
You know what? Actually, that's a great idea. I could try and reach out to Sign My Rocket again, because we were just talking before this stream, and I could ask him if he would put the Lee Spring Army Badger onto a shell, because I've seen, like I was telling Matthew about what they painted onto shells. They've done some impressively good stuff with Disney characters, which I cannot show on stream due to copyright reasons. But if they could do those well, they could do the Badger good, and they could put L.S.A. under it, and I could make that a part of the intro as well, because that would be cool as hell. So with that, I hope that addresses that comment fairly well, because that actually sparked me into thinking about a great idea. So thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick to address the poll that I put up, in general, are you of the stick to the devil you know mindset or risk a new regime? It looks like 50% said risk a new and maybe deadlier regime, 30% said I am undecided, and 21% said stick to the devil you know. Now, on this one, I am undecided, and I know that's a cop-out, but I'm really honestly not sure. This is a pretty interesting debate, and at first it looked like the results were going to be pretty evenly split, but it looks like a decent amount would risk a new regime. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with that 51%. It actually bumped up a percent point there. I would have to agree with them and say that I, too, would also try and go with a new and maybe deadlier regime. Because Putin has been pretty rough, and if we can get anyone in charge that would kind of scale back what Putin's been doing at least, or maybe reverse it, although it most likely wouldn't be reversed, it would most likely just be slowed down, I would have to go with that option. And so with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Jay Bagwell, who says a Wagner Group spokesman, who is personal friend of Kadyrov, was arrested today in Moscow. He publicly said that Kadyrov was willing to send his sons to Ukraine and asked Russian MOD leaders to do the same.
Interesting. That may be the reason why he was arrested, because he was about to show how cowardly they all were, and they're like, quick, arrest him, throw him out the window now. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. And of course, that is actually an interesting comment. I hadn't heard about that specific amount of news on that guy in particular, but that is good to know. And so with that, I thank you so much for telling us that little tidbit of information. And we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And next up, we have a $10 super chat from Teluvian, who says, did you see that M30A1 rockets are now in Ukraine?
I did not, actually. And that is something that we have heard about for a while, I believe, about 3 weeks. But we never actually seen official video or picture evidence showing that to be the case. And so with that, I thank you for letting us know. We will try and look and find the picture and video evidence of it. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support and allowing us to be filled in on an additional tidbit of information. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right. And next up, we have a $10 super chat from NAFO agent Nunya, who says bots and propagandists never stop, so we can never stop. NAFO always needs more fellows.
Hey, well, I thank you so much for the support, and the Lee Spring Army always requires more soldiers. And let me ask you, are you ready to be in the Lee Spring Army? Speaking of which, something a merchandise idea that I was thinking about, Matthew, is the Lord Kitchener poster. Let me find it, Lord Kitchener poster. Right here. You know where he's pointing at you? He says, want you to join your country's army. Like, what if...
And who made that?
That would have, I believe, been the I forgot who exactly it was. It was some.
Is it Britain?
Yeah, it was some ministry in the British government that made that poster back in World War I. But
and also, Enforcer, see, the tricky thing with that is we can use the ones made in America because taxpayer dollars were used to make it. But I'm not sure about Britain if we would be able to use that or not.
Well, hear me out, though. You didn't hear me out. What if we replace Kitchener with the Enforcer head, you know, like the gas mask and all, and the helmet, and then we put a little arm over here and it said, the Enforcer wants you to join the L.S.A.
That could be possible, potentially.
Yeah, I was thinking that'd be a pretty cool idea. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And that actually brought us to a pretty good idea. So thank you so much for the support. And I hope that addresses the comment fairly well.
All right, and next up, we have a $20 super chat from David Colley, who says, I just love the relief on the elderly faces as Ukraine liberates them. Good work, guys. Love the outgoing L.S.A. mail. LOL.
And thank you so much for the support, David Colley. And thank you so much for enjoying the shell that was fired in the honor of this channel today. And I gotta say, what an honor it is to actually have something like that done for our channel. It's it's unbelievable to think that we've supported this war as much as we can, and it's actually coalesced into something physical over there, which is really crazy to me. Also, a lot of people seem to be wanting that that little poster, so maybe we can start working on that. We're starting to try and get ready for another limited edition merch run here in the future, and we're trying to figure out some ideas. So that may be one of them. But also, I thank you so much for enjoying the videos that we show on this channel. I try and find the good ones. Of course, huge credit to the people who find them in the first place for me to be able to find them. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I thank you for enjoying this channel, and I thank you for enjoying the brand new intro we had tonight. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And also, I want to know who remembers the limited edition run we did with the Enforcer on the United States, like, old-style propaganda poster. It was like, the Enforcer sees you or something like that. Do you remember it, Enforcer?
Yes, I do. It was the he's always watching poster.
Yes, yes, that was so cool. That was a long time ago, though. I think that was months ago.
Man, I sometimes I feel like maybe we ought to reinvigorate some. Well, then again, they're not really limited edition if they're brought back, but maybe we ought to reinvigorate some of our older limited edition runs and designs and bring them back for a short period again, because they were really cool. That one was probably one of our cooler ones that we've done.
It was, really. But with that being said, we're on to our next super chat, which is from Dr. Volya, who puts in an $8 donation and says the U.S. announced they would send Ukraine 200 MRAPs. Awesome. Enforcers, can you compare the speed and armament of an MRAP to the Hummers that Ukraine has been using as cavalry?
The Humvee. The Humvee is... This isn't a PayPal. PayPal. We'll cut to the chase. 98% of Wikipedia's readers don't give. They simply look away. All we ask is $2.75 or whatever seems right to you this Wednesday before you get back to your article. I'm sorry, but I'm in a stream, so maybe later. But if y'all would like to, no email. But if y'all would like to, please make sure to go and help out Wikipedia, because a lot of people who come through always trash on Wikipedia and act like I'm supposed to be able to buy a book, have it literally over-minuted, shipped to me from Amazon, and then I'm supposed to be able to read 300 pages in 20 seconds and then give y'all an answer to something. But Wikipedia has been my go-to on this stream to try and find information quickly that I may be lacking. And in that regard, and also comparing it to some of the historical knowledge that I do have on other instances, they are largely accurate. There is, of course, the occasional slip-up here and there, but the information is solid to be pretty much a free and publicly hosted information site. And so if you'd like to, please make sure to go help out Wikipedia, because that will help us to keep on covering this news and grabbing some information for y'all that we may not know off the top of our head. But looking at the Humvee, 281,000 of them built. It's actually not a lot. Let's see, maximum speed, 55 miles per hour. Let's go look at the MRAP. The MRAP, and the first picture of it is just cool. Man, that's really crazy looking, honestly. And that was apparently made in 2007, but for some reason, Matthew, that picture quality looks like late 80s.
It does. It looks fake.
Yeah, it kind of does, but it's a real picture, surprisingly not. But anyways, moving on down. Moving on down. Apparently, this one was hit by an IED, and the whole crew survived. What?
That's like in rapid disassembly, as they say.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that the whole entire thing just got blown to shreds, but somehow the whole crew's alive. That's actually a huge testament to the protection of that vehicle. Moving on down. Sadly, I cannot find any specific information on the MRAPs as a whole, so I think we'll have to do something like these Max Pros, because I know that the Ukrainians have some of these Max Pro MRAPs. So we'll put this in. Oh, nope. Just want that. Copy. Copy. Roger. Paste. Now, here we go. So this thing has a top speed of... It doesn't say. It gets to 0 to 60. Some eventually. I don't see the speed here.
Wait a minute. Go back up. It said the design may prove effective that uses similar design. One that mounts to a Unimog. Okay, I thought they were saying it was designed off the Unimog chassis. I was about to say I didn't know that.
I was about to say that's insane to think that's like a Unimog nearly, but moving on from that, the armor body is bolted together instead of welded. Let's see here. At the Aberdeen Proving Grounds. Oh, I thought that was Aberdeen in the United Kingdom. I was like, what in the world? Man, I can't find the speed. MRAP.
It goes fast enough.
It gets there eventually. So it can go 105 kilometers an hour versus the Humvee's 89 kilometers an hour. So this thing can actually travel at a faster speed. It's got more horsepower. It's got almost twice the horsepower. It can go a little bit faster. And so with that, I would have to say, by and large, it does everything that the Humvee does, but it's far better protected. And so for that reason, it's good to hear that the United States has sent over more of them. We've already seen loads of them in Ukraine. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope we were able to answer that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Cade Riddle, who says, "Here we go."
And thank you so much for the support. And I think that was thrown in probably like one of the first things on stream. But now 2 hours and 57 minutes in, here we go. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Justin Norse, who says, "Enforcer, is Russia the first country that has people fleeing, not because someone invaded their country, but because they invaded another country?"
No, this has happened before. In fact, in World War II, a lot of Germans, especially Jewish Germans, would flee the country during the annexations of Austria, Czechoslovakia, and also the invasion of Poland. So it's not the first time, but I would say that this is probably the most the largest occurrence of this in the modern world. I'm sorry I couldn't come up with a really good wordage for it, but with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Galaxy Fur 4014, who says, "I bet we won't hardly see anything more than 20% of that 300,000 actually ever make it to the front lines. The rest will be splattered by the trains."
And I thank you for the support and also carrying on that comment. And also, I would have to say, I believe that less than, in all seriousness, I believe that less than 20% of them will make it to the front lines. I think it would be more so closer to 10%. Because from what I've seen, the condition of all of these conscriptive forces has not been good at all. Not at all. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support. And adding on to that, to the comment about them getting run over by the train, because I'm sure that a decent amount of them have probably been splattered at this point already. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And next up, we have another $5 super chat from Galaxy Fur 4014, who says, "Remember, it's not the 200-ton locomotive that you have to worry about hitting you. It's the 10,000 tons of train behind it that you have to worry about. Lols."
And I thank you for the support, but I gotta be honest with you, if I got hit by a 220-ton train, I think I wouldn't be feeling all too grand, but with the additional 10,000 tons added to it, I think I would be feeling extra ungrand. I think I would have to lie down and take a little bit of a nap. But with that, I thank you for the support, and also adding that in, that's a pretty good comment. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right. And also, let's see here real quick. I was just checking something out. I saw a Dutchman saying in the live chat, breaking, North Korea fired a missile again Thursday morning in Asia. I was looking on the news real quick to see what's going on. It looks like something is going on here, but I'm not really sure what to make of it. It looks like the United States is moving some carriers or something over there. But me and the Force will have to look further into it and see if there's some breaking news on that. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $5 donation from Stefan R., who says, "My cat seems indifferent. Do you think I should feed him?" Stefan, I'm a little scared to say that one. I'm not sure if YouTube's going to come down and get us over it. So I'll have to skip it just to play it safe. But thank you very much for the support, and we do appreciate it very much. And moving on to our next one, we have a $5 super chat from Brian Springburn, who says, "Is that a turret on your tank, or are you just happy to see me?"
That's a pretty good one, actually. And I thank you for the support and a pretty good joke. I like how people sometimes use the super chats just to throw in a joke, and they're usually pretty good. And that one was a pretty good one as well. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Christian Gals, who does not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Christian, for your support. And we also have a $5 super chat from Bogdan, who says, will the U.S. send ATACMS rockets if it has targeting oversight and can veto targets?
Interesting. I did not know that. Now, I got to be honest with you all. Of course, I can identify vehicles, and I can largely tell you the basic rundowns of them, like their caliber, their speed, maybe their range, how much they cost, but I usually don't get into the nitty-gritty on things. I have slowly kind of been doing that over the course of this war, but one thing about the nitty-gritty, you know, and of course this is no disparaging against anyone, it's just that when you get into the nitty-gritty, you then get a million experts that come crawling out of the woodworks on stuff, and they may not even be experts. They may not know what they're talking about, but they want to get in a fight with you and die on a hill about some, you know, like largely trivial information. I've had that happen before. I actually had someone tell me on stream because I was talking about, well, not on stream, off stream, because I was talking about the Harpoon anti-ship missile. No, actually the HARM anti-radiation missile. Oh, you know, they got into all this stuff about ballistics and how it doesn't travel at the same speed across this whole flight path, which just seems like common sense. And said all this stuff because I just said it's great that the Ukrainians have HARM radiation missiles and they'll be able to hit Russian radars with them. That's all I said. And so I usually don't get down rabbit holes, but that is interesting information to know about that missile. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Martin Bridge, who says, what happened to Zelensky's million-person army? There are still recruits training in the UK. Swapping frontline soldiers is a good thing and means battlefield fatigue is lessened. Slava Ukraine.
Slava Ukraine. And also to answer that, that is very true. Frontline fatigue is quite serious. And what's happened to the million mobilized men? I don't know where people have been getting the million mobilized number because the official number, I believe, was 300,000. But they're probably never going to make it. They're not even being equipped at all. They're not even being fed, so the chances of them even getting transport to get to the Ukraine is highly unlikely, most likely implausible. And so with that, I hope that answers the comment fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And I would agree that frontline rotations are incredibly important to ensuring that fatigue doesn't set onto a unit and then, you know, of course, wear them down. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $4 super chat from Ben, who says, we New Zealanders watch at work. We can't give much, but we have given infantry training, communications, and logistics support, plus 1,000 bulletproof vests.
And thank you so much for the support to our New Zealanders in the Lee Spring Army. And also thank you once again for bringing that up. The New Zealanders and the Australians have provided a decent amount of equipment to Ukraine. And I got to say, it's always nutty to think that these two are almost Western countries in almost every regard, except for they're not in the West, they're in the East. In the very far southeast, as a matter of fact. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And also, New Zealand is a really neat place. I would actually like to drop down here and take a look at it. What about right here? Wow, it's actually really pretty. Honestly, kind of reminds me of like near the Teton Peaks in Wyoming. Matthew is over there falling asleep. So with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $4 super chat from Kaz Butler, who says, have you thought about channel membership options and create emojis like Leaf Spring Army, Dirt Nap, Bot Be Gone, and Slava Ukraine?
And we have thought about emojis and things like that, but did they say channel memberships?
Yes.
We don't do channel memberships for the reason that channel memberships, to me, makes it feel a little bit over-commercialized, like to the point that we're trying to sell people on like a membership thing. I don't know. It's never really won me over, the idea. I do like the idea of little specialized emojis for the channel, but memberships I've just never really been into. And whenever I go over to other channels and I see memberships, I find for some reason it just seems tacky, and it also seems really tacky that when you click on a video, it sits there at the bottom and it just pops up this giant window on the bottom left of your screen that says, "Do you want to become a member?" Like it's like almost harassing you, like it's some kind of a tout or something like that.
And Enforcer, I heard that there was a channel that was actually forcing you to pay to actually live chat. That's what I've heard.
Really?
Yes.
That's nuts. Like
I heard about it and I saw it yesterday. I was like, "You're kidding me!" But it was actually real.
Is that still going on, or was?
I don't know, but it was going on the other day.
I gotta say, the one thing I gotta say is that I enjoy the format we have. We don't run ads, so real quick, like let me explain this real quick because I think this is something that maybe a lot of people don't know because a lot of people don't understand how YouTube monetization works because who really cares unless if you're in that system. So YouTube monetization works going off of ads. That if you run an ad, you get like a very small amount of dollars per view. So let's say you get like 1,000 views, you make like $1 to $3 off of 1,000 views with ads on. You get 55% of that ad revenue, and YouTube gets 45% of it. So if you run ads, you can make some okay money, but we don't run ads on our streams or our channel in general. We started to run them on our videos because we found out that YouTube actually pushes videos better analytically because then they get an incentive to, but we don't run them on streams because I feel like it's tacky. So what we have to rely on as a channel is super chats, and a lot of y'all have sent them in tonight, so it's good to know y'all know that. And well, actually, there's a couple of ways. Let me explain them all. There's super chats and super stickers. Those work the same. Y'all seen a lot of them come in tonight. And then there are memberships. Memberships are where you pay like a monthly subscription fee to a channel to get like special little privileges. So your name gets like a little color. You can throw in like special little emojis and stuff like that. And then you get harassed if you click on this channel and you're not a member to become a member. And I honestly don't like that much because it makes it feel like there's a paywall, and that's one thing I don't like is people coming onto this channel and thinking that they have to pay to watch or to ask a question. And while we always answer the super chats first, we always answer some live chat questions that were not sent in with a super chat attached, because I like that, and I like the idea of people coming in here, and if they don't like the show, they don't lose any skin in the game. They didn't have to watch an ad, they didn't have to pay, they just get to watch it. And even then, even if they just don't have any money but they enjoy it a lot, they don't feel pressured because they can't afford a membership or something like that. And that's why we run this channel this way, and that's why we rely on super chats. It's not that we have to, we could do it other ways, but I feel like that allows y'all to set the value as well to how much y'all find this to be worth. So if you find it to be worth $5, you put in $5. If you just enjoy it and you can't put anything in, you don't have to. And if you love it and you want to throw in hundreds of dollars, you can. And so that's why we run it this way. And also to let y'all know about this, YouTube, when you send in a super chat, they take 30% of it, and they also deduct VAT taxes if you're from Europe or a country that has a VAT tax, and sales taxes if you're from the United States. So like if you're from Europe, you could send in like, I don't know, like 20 euros. They'll take 30% of that, and then they'll also deduct fat from it, which sometimes is like, you sit there and be like, Jesus, how big is VAT sometimes? But anyways, that's how monetization works. That's why we run our channel this way. And I can promise y'all that we're never going to make it a membership-only live chat. That kind of takes away the fun of just coming in here and being able to talk with friends and stuff, because then you have to be worried about paying. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and next up, we have a $5 super chat from C.A. Lags, who says, "Here's for the future, sign my rocket fund."
And thank you so much for the support to the Sign My Rocket Fund. I think we may be able to ask them to get another show, but if they ask for us to pay, I would be more than happy to pay, because they did us a great service the first time, and why not help them out? And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $4 super chat from Ben, who says, "Do you think the Ukrainians will find it difficult to maintain logistics and reinforcements across the Dnipro River when they try to capture Kherson?"
I believe that the Russians will find that incredibly difficult, considering all bridge crossings have been heavily damaged or destroyed. That means that those troops will only be able to cross with infantry alone, and any other heavier equipment and vehicles wouldn't be able to cross because the bridges cannot bear that load. And so for that reason, it will be incredibly difficult for them to hold on to anything in Kherson unless if they're using light infantry alone, and I'm talking very light infantry. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw something in the live chat that I just want to mention. I thought it was pretty funny. Buddy said that you guys are the best. You have the best stream out there, and others are trying to copy. And first off, Buddy, thank you very much for the kind words there. We do appreciate it very much. But I was actually watching one yesterday, and I was actually kind of intrigued by the channel. I was like, this isn't bad. But then I started seeing polls pop up, and the poll questions were word for word. The polls I've run on this channel, even the options were word for word the same. And I was sitting there thinking, something seemed familiar about this. And I started seeing them come up one by one. I was like, interesting. I think this individual's been watching our channel and marking down our questions to put on theirs. But I was like,
Right now, Matthew, who the channels we're talking about right now are probably furiously writing down notes about what we're saying. They're like, make sure to say that on your stream. You know, I don't know, because I can kind of tell that it's irking Matthew a little bit. Honestly, it doesn't really bother me all too much because, you know, we have our own special thing going, Matthew and me, I think, at least, you know, not to sit there and sound like we got the special sauce or anything, but we've got our own thing going. I'm happy for it. If people try and imitate, hopefully, if they are, they are, I've seen it. If they are, hopefully it's just improving the entire genre in YouTube altogether. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And Matthew, you brought that up like 5 times tonight. Is that like irking you?
Honestly, a little bit, I have to say. But at the same time, the most important thing is to get the news out. But, I mean, you don't necessarily have to copy polls. I mean, people can think for themselves to some extent. But anyways, up next, we have a $10 super chat from Richard Philpott, who says, here's my theory. Let the Ruskies saturate Crimea with men and armor, then take out the Kerch Bridge at the Russian footing. At that point, you send in the A-10s, Bert, ARF, annihilate Russian forces.
Get the thing away from me. Of course, A-10s are a contentious thing. And I'm just gonna drop that. A-10s, if they get sent, better than nothing. Hopefully they'll work well. And also, that's a pretty solid strategy right there. I think it would work fairly well. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment. And if they saturated the area with troops, I think they would just be in for a terrible time. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And next up, we have a $3 super chat from VPCZX, who says, Enforcer President Tokayev of Kazakhstan has stated to send aid to Ukraine next year after the 1-year halt on weapons exports.
And can you reread that one again one more time?
They said, Enforcer President Tokayev of Kazakhstan has stated to send aid to Ukraine next year after the 1-year halt on weapons exports.
Interesting. It's interesting here that Kazakhstan is now aligning with Ukraine as well. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And I thank you for sharing that with us, because I didn't know that Ukraine was getting allies and friends in the CSTO of all places. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much for sharing that little tidbit of information with us.
Indeed. And up next, we have a $3 super chat from Sarah Tonin, who says, best donuts equal Balfour's Australia. They're thick, and the icing is immaculate. Compare the size to Krispy Kreme.
And I thank you for the support. I think I actually talked about that one earlier, and I mistook it for a live chat. But we did take a look at that, and so I thank you so much for the support. I hope you enjoyed us taking a quick little look at that earlier. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And next up, we have a $3 super chat from JPKOWTS, or Z, who says, the donut mill in Red Deer, Alberta. It's really the only thing to look forward to on the way to the Rocky Mountains.
And I thank you for the support. And what was the name of that place again?
The donut mill in Red Deer, Alberta.
And Red Deer, Alberta. Let's take a look at this place. It's a mill that makes Donuts! No way. No way. That's a lie. They don't make donuts. Let's see. They got old-fashioned glaze. Oh, those do look good. They all look good. They also got a big mill building. That's cool. I tell you, this is a mill. Got some like a 49er with some kind of a hog or something in a mailbox. That's pretty interesting. And it looks like they have some good stuff. A chocolate eclair. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support and letting us know about that. And of course, a very interesting look at a little place that makes confectionaries in Canada. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and next up, we have a $2 super chat from Ricardo Ospina, and thank you very much for your support. He does not leave a comment. And up next, we also have a $2 super chat from Dupper Bob, who also doesn't leave a comment, but thank you very much as well to you for your support. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from CA Lags, who says, Mobics are buying the food the army got for them.
And I thank you for the support. I don't know who Molbix is, but I do thank you for letting us know that, and I will try and look into that and get a better understanding of it in the future. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Jeffrey Calton, who says, POW vids violate international law and Geneva Conventions.
I thank you for the support, but considering how many times the Ukrainians and the Russians have made POW videos, I'm not entirely sure if that's true or not, because it doesn't really seem like anyone's making massive diplomatic protests over either of them doing it. And so with that, I thank you for the support, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $1 super chat from VPCZX, who says, Why two red things by my homeland of Kazakhstan?
Why two red thing? Oh, because that's where people were trying to flood into your country. Because, well, actually, the conscripts in Omsk were another situation, but this right here is some teepees made of sarin wrap that are right on the border of Kazakhstan as Russians were trying to flee into your country. And also really interesting here that you're from Kazakhstan. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and thank you so much for the support.
All right, and that is our final super chat of the night. So we're now moving on to our live chat questions. And first up, we have one from James Reyes, who says, how long do you think it would take for Russia to do what Ukraine has done and start their own improvised vehicles?
I believe if you're talking about the Russians, it would most likely take them a couple of weeks, most likely to try and sort out the design and then start producing them. So I don't think it would take too long because those kinds of buggies are mechanically simple. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Joe Dimmitt, who says, I wonder how many deserters there are so far.
Probably a decent amount. We haven't been able to get an official number on that, I believe, but it's on up there. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Also, we'll be answering 5 more questions from the live chat and then rounding out tonight's stream, because tomorrow we have to start off an early day, an incredibly early day. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from David B., who says, is it possible that Russia is using older guys as support, and what do you think?
It could be possible. I think they're also using older guys because it's hard to catch the young ones. And so for that reason, they may be using them in supporting roles, but they may also be using them on the front line just due to the lack of soldiers altogether. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And we had one more super chat come in, this time from John Lee, who puts in a $15 donation and says, is the Danivka Bridge knocked? If not, could be a lot of one-way traffic west.
The Danivka Bridge. That is in, from what I can tell, this appears to be in northern Ukraine, although there could be a couple of Danivkas that we are not seeing. Also, for some reason, I've gotten a very bad headache in the back of my head, but not to chicken out. I'm not exactly sure. I'm actually going to have to declare ignorance on that one, because I don't know whether that bridge was knocked out or not. And so with that, I thank you for the support, John Lay, but unfortunately, I don't think I have an answer to that question as of right now. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, real quick, Enforcer, I'm not sure what has happened, but I have lost a super chat, and I'm trying to look through here to see where it is. There it is. Okay, it got disorganized for some reason. My spreadsheet is having a small issue. I see one right there. So this one is actually a super chat, and it was from Avarwi Oh my goodness, I'm not sure how to say your last name. Mandu Brashis, I think, if I'm mispronouncing it, I'm sure. Who says, for insight into the Russian mindset, I recommend watching Russian dashcam crash videos. Russian drivers are fatalistic, turning into traffic with no regard for life, theirs or others. Many drive rudely or while drunk. May be too much for stream.
We have seen those videos, man. They me love watching them, and I would have to say that they are certainly a nutty group. And so with that, I thank you for the support. I'm sorry that we missed that earlier, but I'm glad that we were able to circle back and make sure to answer it. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, and I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support. And I'm sorry that we missed it a little earlier. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from Packrat, who says, if more Russian soldiers get tired and eventually revolt, do you think Putin would nuke his own people, since he is pretty adamant about using those?
I don't think he would nuke his own people, because the only thing that would do is turn the entire nation against him, because a nuke doesn't discriminate in between his supporters or people who are trying to put him down. And so I think that would mostly be a very unpopular choice to make inside of his own country. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to USMC Devil Dog, who says, do you think that Putin could possibly be letting his man get massacred so that he can try to justify using nuclear weapons?
I don't think he's trying to get them massacred to use nuclear weapons. He could just use them without them getting slaughtered further. I think they're getting slaughtered because they suck. And so I don't think there's any complex plan to the Russians losing this war. I think they're just losing it because they're terrible at fighting wars. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from Dan, who says, do you think the Ukraine will roll out their alligator or can take out tank or helicopter at 1 kilometer?
We have seen them roll out the alligator. I don't think he'll be able to take out a helicopter or a plane, but it certainly can be used as an anti-material rifle against a BMP or something similar. It can punch through that kind of armor, and we have seen it in use already. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, we're now going to answer the last Super Chats of the night, and then after that, we'll be rounding out tonight's stream, because we just got done answering 5 live chats.
All right, and the final super chat of the night goes to Serotonin, who puts in a $3 donation and says, starting a medical fund for Enforcer to go get his neck looked at, maybe chiropractic.
And I thank you for the support, Serotonin. I generally do not like doctors, so I would probably avoid them, but I do thank you for the support, and if it does get too bad, I probably will go and see a doctor. And to address another one, Matthew, that it looks like may have slipped by, from G-Rock. G-Rock's in a $20 super chat. Thank you so much for the support. And he said, just sent you a flag design for the Lee Spring Army. Send it through the merch store. Keep up the great work. And thank you so much for the kind words, and thank you so much for helping out this channel. Now, I don't know how you send it through the merch store. If everyone could, if you do have a flag design, please send it to me over Discord DM, and also post a duplicate copy of it in the Discord server under merch ideas, so that way we can see all the designs of the flag, and then we'll go through and we'll pick out the ones that are the best. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, G-Rock. I will try and go and find that design and take a look at it, and thank you so much once again for helping out this channel. And so with that, we have finally reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for your incredible questions, and I hope you all have enjoyed the news as well. And if you did, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, as this stream runs every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays. We take that day off, but every other day, we are on here live covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's stream, and I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the war in Ukraine and the first day of a new week. Have a great night, and take care.